Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Critical Podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Good, and joining me once again is Manny. Manny, how you doing?
Hello. I almost said Happy New Year, but I guess, well, sort of, right? Have we done an episode since the New
No, we
Year?
haven't.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too.
Yeah.
And a fun little fact, Manny, I feel like more people watch the episodes that you're on more than any of the other ones that I do for the most part. Because we just talk, I feel like people are like, is this a Lord of the Rings podcast? Well, sometimes it is. All right.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just becomes that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes we talk about as long as a Lord of the Rings episode. So it's almost a commentary at this point. Just a little out of context. Anyway, if you guys haven't caught up in the past, basically Manny has been on for 5 of the 6 at this time films for the Lord of the Rings franchise, including The Hobbit. And now we are talking about the Battle of the Five Armies, the end of the trilogy, or hashtag one last time. I went back and looked at some of the old promotional stuff, and it was like, I think at that
was the hashtag?
It was the hashtag. It was like hashtag one last time. Because
it's almost sad a little bit. They're like, please watch it one more time. We have one more movie. Bear with us one last time. Okay, here we go.
It did seem like that because I don't know about the critical reception of Unexpected Journey and the Desolation, and then coming into this one, if people were like, "Oh, you're making a third one," and then there was just kind of like, "Yeah, come on back, everybody, come on back." It's sad. It's like, and you know what? It works on me because I'm so like Lord of the Rings. Like I was gonna see it either way, but like I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'll come back one last time.
You're like, one last time.
Like I love you. It's like they're trying to go for like some sort of Return of the King thing, which also. It's another reason I love the old trilogy, because that was before like hashtags and stuff. Like it's not a Return of the King. It wasn't like hashtag Aragorn, for king or something. Or like it was just like, nah, it's just coming out in 2003, baby. But yeah, anyway, so we're talking about the last like film that we have right now as of this recording. Hopefully, one day we'll talk about the Silmarillion or the Amazon show or whatever it's going to be. But I want to start the very beginning, the thing that people were waiting for, people wanted so badly in Desolation of Smaug, but that is to watch a gigantic fire-breathing dragon destroy a shantytown. And that's what you get in the first 10 minutes of this movie. It's just like, hey, remember that really chilling exit cliffhanger you had with Desolation? Well, we are revisiting that immediately. And there is a sense of dread and fear in that beginning, and I absolutely love it. Like, I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I think, like, it is tough. I remember when I saw it in theaters, I was like, not to move ahead, but, like, spoilers, Smaug dies within, like, the first 10 minutes of the film. Right? So, like, I think right off the bat, as cool as it was to be, like, immediately brought back into that world of, like, oh my god, yeah, there's a dragon. Oh god, oh crap, okay. What's happening? Like, that was cool. I think the tension was awesome. That being said, I think the pacing, like, and this is a theme I'm sure we'll touch on throughout this episode, but like, the pacing of the film right off the bat felt it took me a little bit out of it, because we are left with a cliffhanger, and like, I'm down for that. But I think like the conclusion of that cliffhanger, like, if you blink, it's gone. You missed it. You know what I mean? And so I think that like that took me a little bit out of it for sure. And like, there really wasn't, like, not that they would do like in the last movie and then like a recap, but like they didn't even do any kind of like scene setting for how, like, it had been a little while since you've seen the last movies, maybe. So like they didn't do any of that to kind of set you up for this huge conflict, because like Smaug is such a big, I mean, one of the movies is named after him. He's got his name in the title. And then so like the conclusion of that is just like a whisper in the wind. It's here and it's gone. So awesome scene. Some interesting like differences from the books for sure. But I don't necessarily think, and it's something I said before, I don't think it's like a filmmaker's job is supposed to like just perfectly interpret the book one for one. I think it's an artistic process. So I'm fine with it being different, but the pacing definitely threw me for a loop. But like, who doesn't love seeing like dragons and stuff? So like, overall, like, really no complaints.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think you make a great point. I think the interesting thing with Smaug is like, he was the big card for them to play. And it was kind of like, we'll tease it, in an Unexpected Journey. You really get to show him off in Desolation, but we don't get to see the finale of that until the beginning of this film. And I wonder sometimes, people talk about this, like, what if he would have destroyed Lake Town and that would have been the end of Desolation? And like
Yeah.
maybe the moment Bard gets the arrow and he grabs the arrow, maybe that's when you end it, and you're like, okay, we're gonna see that. But either way, I think you still have the problem where you do start off with, it's like a climax of the final or the last film, and now we're jumping straight into it, and then that happens, and then the title rolls with Battle of the Five Armies, and you're like, wow, that was really intense. And there are a few more big intense moments in this movie, but it's hard to top like a guy shooting down a dragon. Which, by the way, if you've ever watched I think you have too, Manny, like the animated version of The Hobbit, I'm pretty sure Bard is just like a dude who shows up and he like walks out in the town with a bow and arrow, and he's like, boop, and he just like shoots, and he just nails it. I think the way they framed this was so much cooler, having like Bard's son be like part of the bow because the bow broke, and like you see Smaug like charging down after him. I was like, that was really intense. I was like, that's pretty cool.
So intense. Yeah, and like it's so dramatic. It's just drama, like overflow, right? In the book, if I remember correctly, he does just have a bow. It's not like a turret or whatever on a tower. And he walks out, and he starts to like he goes through all of his arrows, and they all kind of plink off of the dragon, and he has this one last arrow, and he's about to shoot it, and a bird, I think it's a thrush, lands on his shoulder and is like, hey, wait, shoot the hollow point in his breast. And so like this bird who like kind of, I think it alludes to the fact that the bird was like kind of around and heard some of the talk with like Thorin, and like the bird had some context. The bird kind of knew what was up. And so this random ass bird just like comes over and he's like, hey, hit that part. And he's like, got it, bird. When he shoots it. So that would have been weird. That would have been a weird thing to see in the movie. Like, I think it reminds me of like when Gandalf grabs the moth at the top of the tower, and he's like, go catch me an eagle or whatever. That's very cool because there's like a sense of like, there's like an organic friendship between like this, wizard and nature. And that's cool. But if it was just like, I'm a guy and a bird told me to do the thing, like it just feels, I'm glad they didn't do that. I think that moment was super cool. And just like, physically, like physics wise, I think it was really cool. It's like, well, I got this huge arrow and I need something to prop it. Oh, child, come here, child. So I think it's cool. Adds a lot of cool drama and a sense of personality, I think.
Oh yeah, totally. And another thing I kind of noticed on this last time that I'd watched it is that Bard's firing style, it's an inverted kind of arm style, which is the exact same way that Lurtz fires his arrows. So seeing that again, I'm like, oh, it's so cool. But it's something, I don't know, maybe it's like a fantasy archetype, but just seeing like an archer in a tower shooting at a dragon, like that's so cool. Like that, like the imagery of that, I'm like, oh, this is like, I like this. And man, like, but we talked about it's a big impactful moment. You have like the master leaving in this comical fashion, because remember the Hobbit, as we've talked about in the other like podcasts, that the Hobbit is a bit more kind of it's cut and dry, it's black and white, I think, and it's a little more cartoony. So the master is leaving on a barge filled with all the gold from the city to go who knows where, but then of course when Smaug dies, he smashes down and crashes onto that boat because comeuppance. I don't remember if that happens in the book itself, or
I don't
know.
think so. I do remember when in the books there's this huge sense of what's going on inside Smaug's head, which I think is really cool. And I think would be difficult for the movie, but you get like an inside look at what he's thinking, and he's like looking at this bridge, if I remember correctly, and it was on fire. And he has this moment where he's like, oh, if I touch the water, then it'll create so much steam, it'll envelop the whole town. And so you get like this, like,
oh, cool.
In whatever it is, interior monologue. Is that what I'm thinking?
Yeah, very good, very good.
This interior monologue of him being like, okay, like, what do I want to do here? Like, and coming off of the last movie, if you remember, he's so angry, like he was just covered in gold, and then he gets super pissed off, and he comes back with a vengeance. So I think it's really cool the way they did that in the book. But I mean, for movie purposes, it's not like you could have him talking to the audience. Like, it'd be weird. It'd be a little strange. So, but yeah, it is pretty cartoony. Like, I think it's a pretty common trope for like the king or the overlord to be like, my gold, and try to escape and abandon the people and stuff. And then you have this like hero figure come out of, like prison basically.
Yep.
And yeah, it's a really cool moment, and I think like beat to beat, it makes for a pretty fun ride.
Oh, totally. I was just thinking about this while you're talking about that. What if the gold had solidified just enough in that spot, and unfortunately the dwarves had made it impossible to kill Smog, and it was just that one little spot that had gold, and he's like, I'm trying to hit the spot, guys, but why is he shiny in that one spot? It's like
that
guys,
one little hole in his chest.
We didn't think it through. I also do love that he has a little conversation with Bard from like a couple of football fields away. Like
yeah, he's like, oh, you don't have anything except your death, and he's like whispering basically, and they're like miles apart.
Which is so funny because like the way they also shot that, and it's hard to do, but they kind of make it so that way it looks like they're having a conversation, and it's like a two shot almost, but it makes Smog look like the same size as Bard, kind of, and you're like, this, and he's a ways away still, but you're like, that's the dragon, like that gigantic thing, and it's like when it gets closer, you start to be like, oh yeah, this thing isn't just like human size. It's gonna crush him, even though he doesn't get to. Dang it.
And then just like that, he's like gone. You know what I mean? I think like all that buildup and all that tension and the conversation and the sun and the everything, and then it's just gone. And if I remember correctly, like I don't remember that hashtag, but I remember how aggressively they promoted Smog throughout those two last films. And like he did an interview with like Stephen Colbert, and like it was this huge focal point, and then it was just like, and he's gone. Okay, now moving on to the next thing. And I agree. I think it's hard to top a dragon. So like, so the police are driving by, or so. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's hard to like. I don't know. After it happened, I was just like, I know it's called The Battle of Five Armies, and I've read the book. I know how it goes, but like, that was a pretty big moment. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, feels like we can't really go up from here.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Cause like after that, you think like, man, this is going to be quite the ride. Like that's the beginning of your movie. That means the rest of it's going to be so impactful. It almost feels a little bit like kind of what they tried to do with Two Towers, where eventually where you show Gandalf and the Balrog, and then later on you show the end of that fight. But I understand where it's like they kind of needed to wrap that up, especially if they're going to name this movie that, and they didn't want to change it, because if they didn't do that, then I guess we'd try to make Smog part of the fight, but that would be so hard to do logistically speaking. But yeah, I totally hear you. But then it's like, okay, that's done, its own little microfilm, like dragon destroys town, man destroys dragon, we're moving on. And it's like, okay, let's see what the aftermath is. And apparently all of Middle-earth is abuzz with the fact that Smog is dead. One thing the films, I think, have a hard time doing is displaying the passage of time. And we talked about this in the past too. Like in the books, a lot of times, like it's, if Bilbo and the dwarves went to Rivendell, they might be there for like a week or something. And like in the movie, it looks like a night or 2 nights maybe. And this could have happened over a long stretch of time while the dwarves are kind of still hanging out in Erebor, kind of building a defense and searching doggedly for the Arkenstone. And this is where like the film kind of hinges on this point of like, Thorin he's king of the mountain. He's got the dragon sickness now. He's obsessed with gold. He's even quoting Smog, even though he's never heard him before. And Bilbo's kind of like, hey, like, are you okay? And Thorin's like, someone here, I can't trust him. And he's like, but you're the only one I can trust. And you're like, oh no.
Like, oh yeah, trust me for sure, guys.
It's okay. I think it works. It is just kind of tragic, and I think because the relationship between the two of them doesn't really, I don't think it shifts too much within Desolation. It's more of just like him saying, yeah, you're obviously competent. Like Thorin's like, yeah, Bilbo, you're a competent guy. We're glad you're here. But I feel like not much has changed since the end of Unexpected Journey to this point. So it could have been even more heartbreaking if they would have had more like moments like hanging out together, like chatting, buddy, because this happens and you're supposed to feel really, really bad. And I was like, yeah, it kind of hurts, but it's not like if Aragorn and Frodo, for some reason, I don't know, the two of them, I feel like had more time together in one movie, like,
Totally. Like, and I think like, obviously the relationship between Thorin and Bilbo is supposed to be a major focal point, right? And I think throughout the movie you're seeing them kind of move in opposite trajectories, right?
Yeah.
Like you're seeing Thorin be this like kind of honorable, mighty, soon to be hopeful king guy, and Bilbo kind of be this like lowly, I don't want to leave my house hobbit. And then they kind of shift, right? Like you see Bilbo trying, like kind of taking control of his like destiny and becoming that like thief, robber, sneaky man,
Yeah.
and like doing some heroic stuff, and that's awesome. And then you see Thorin kind of degrade, and almost in a similar fashion to like Gollum with the ring or Frodo with the ring. You see him kind of like greed, and of course the trope of like everyone's corruptible if you put power in front of them. And it's interesting. I think like if you look at like the drama between those two, it can oftentimes be almost like comically tragic, where
Sure.
like you're just like I don't know, man. Like it's just like he has the stone, and they're talking about trust. It just seems like kind of like folly. Like why can't they just like have a real conversation and be like, hey
Yeah.
man, it looks like you're going through some stuff and I'm going through some, but like I don't know. I think if you look at it like almost you would a fairy tale or like a
Yeah.
myth, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
like who's the guy who flew too close to the sun?
Icarus.
Icarus, right? So it's like obviously a real person couldn't build wings made out of glue and feathers and fly, and then they get too close to the sun, it's too far away. So
Yeah.
like if you like suspend your disbelief just a little bit, but in the personal sense, I think their drama becomes a lot more impactful. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's like, okay, like it's about the takeaway. It's not necessarily about the details of the drama. And so I think that takeaway is, what is corruption? What is trust? Like,
Yeah.
what does trust mean to different people? And like the two different cultures kind of clashing of dwarf and hobbit. And I think there's like a lot there that's really cool if you just kind of get over the realism or lack thereof, and kind of immerse yourself in the themes. I think it's very, very cool.
Oh, totally. I think for me, what it would, and we'll talk about something I feel like you could cut later on, but I would rather replace with this time is maybe the other dwarfs get in there, and Gloin is supposed to be, he's like Gimli's dad. He's supposed to be like the penny pincher of the group. What if you
Right.
start getting these guys in there and they all start looking at the gold like, yeah, this is mine, or they like start grabbing things, and one's like, hey, no, that like, ha ha ha, like I called that one. They're like, no, I'm holding it, and that's like it's mine, and then they all
Yeah.
start to like turn on each other. That I feel like would make Thorin's kind of a feeling towards his comrades, these people he's known for so long, versus
Yep.
Bilbo, a little more palatable. Like I'd be like, oh yeah, I get why he's starting to distrust them, because they're all starting to be like, well, you know what, like I'm
That
here
gold cup
too,
is mine, and that
you
thing
know,
is mine. Totally. So,
like
and it's a
yeah,
theme we've seen before. Like multiple people standing on the brink of Mount Doom being like, I think I'm gonna keep it, right? Or
yeah,
like the Boromir turning on Frodo. So like
yeah,
all these moments where you get to the 1 yard line and you're like, oh no, I'm gonna go with corruption sounds cool, I'm gonna go with that.
yeah,
So like it's something we've seen before. So I agree. I think like kind of like softening that blow a little bit, or at least making it more unique, because we really haven't seen too much throughout the whole the Fellowship trilogy and the Hobbit. We haven't seen too much of like that greed of the dwarves, and
yeah,
honestly, it's a part of the dwarves culture, and it's a part of their race. They hide in their mountains with their gold, right? Like that's their thing.
yeah.
So I think it would have been really cool to kind of see a little bit more of that.
Oh, totally. I think this gets to another part too, where the dwarves are kind of they've all gotten back together. They're in Erebor, and they're
Yeah.
kind of getting their fortifications up. And Thorin's talking to Bilbo about like, oh, I don't know who I can trust. I can trust you though. And he gets the mithril armor, his undershirt or
Yeah.
whatever. I think I really kind of wish, and maybe he gets it at this point in the book, I wish they would have given that to Bilbo at the very end when he was leaving, because all I can think later on when the dwarves were dropping like flies, I'm like, was there only one of these? I'm like,
Right.
is there?
Yeah.
Are there more? Like, you guys
They
should
tried to
probably coat
describe, like,
yourself.
what's
Yeah,
happening. Yeah.
I'm like, you gave it to you gave it to the burglar. Like, I love
Yeah.
it, guys. I get it. It's just like, okay,
Yeah.
it's a mighty gift, all the same. But I don't know how mithril works, and it seems like I don't know
Sure.
why they only had some of it. It's not that big of a deal. It's just something I think about when they're getting their cool dwarf armor on, and I'm like, well, that's only going to do so much, boys. Like,
Pretty heavy. I have something else that could work for you. Yeah.
but I don't know if like, do you ever like think about those types of things, or you're just like, well, at this point, in the book he got it, and they were like, well, let's just follow it as closely as we can for
Yeah.
now.
I
You know?
think again, like I don't think I don't think it's Peter Jackson's job to be like, what happened in the book? Okay, we're doing it. What
Sure.
happened? Because A, wouldn't work as a film, and B, I think like it's more about the like overarching connection of worlds, right? So I think connecting the Fellowship world with the Hobbit world, because they are kind of segmented, right? Both in like literal time, like The Hobbit came out much after the Fellowship movies came out, and so I think it was just more of like that, like, haha, do you remember this kind of thing?
Yeah.
Not necessarily in a fan servicey way. I think it was more of like a genuine world building kind of way.
Sure.
But there's definitely the thing that stands out to me the most, and we can talk about this later, of course, is how conveniently Legolas gets away with things. like there's some moments where like his physics, like
yes.
there's kind of a sense of like, oh, okay, like you're kind of lucky that thing fell on the thing that was about to kill you or whatever, which like happens in the Fellowship thing for sure, but there was less of a reliance on it, so like it almost comes off as like he's not as skilled as he is super fortunate in battle. But
yeah,
I think about those things a lot.
For sure.
We'll talk about it,
Oh, we will. Oh, we're gonna get to it. The other thing I feel remiss not to mention, because I do forget that it's in this, but it's another a climax from another storyline that comes up pretty early on in this film, and that is the beat down at Dol Guldur. So it's like, for the Lord of the Rings nerd in myself, Manny, there are things I adore about this, and then equal parts I'm like it kind of hurts me. But anyway, so Gandalf's been trapped. He's a Dol Guldur. Sauron's there, and all the orcs have left at this point. So it's like, it's just Sauron or whatever. But Gladriel shows up, and I love how they shoot this, where it's like you see, I think, like her foot first, and it's like this horrible, dark, dingy place, and then you just see like this like white foot and this like this dress, like kind of walking into this place, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is like high fantasy. Like, just take a picture of it, hang it above your mantle. But you get her going in not only by herself, but she's rolling in there with Elrond and Saruman to free Gandalf, which that right there is like, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, because like the idea of it is like so cool. Like, and like Elrond, who I haven't really seen do too much in the movies, besides I think like the very beginning of Fellowship. Like in the video games, he usually has like water powers and stuff, so I was like kind of expecting that to show up, or so I was like, I don't know what he's gonna do. Yeah, exactly. And then they end up fighting the, well, I guess technically at this point they are the Nazgul, maybe the ghosts of the dead kings in their ghost forms. And I gotta be honest, I absolutely hate them.
Yeah.
I really do. I'm so sorry. Like, agreed. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I think like it's one of those things where like it's almost an inconsistency, and like it hurts to say that, but it's just like, aren't they good? They're ghosts, but like, couldn't you only see them with the ring? Okay, whatever. And the battle's over, kind of thing. So I think there's definitely a sense of like maybe some like, not plot holes, but just like inconsistencies, I think is the best way to put it. And I'm sure if you sat Peter Jackson down, he would be like, well, actually, the so-and-so, when before they turn into the blah, 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 this is their form, this is whatever. So like, I'll let it go kind of thing. But I definitely had a similar reaction where I was just like, okay, sure. It's cool. It's a moment where you're just like, it's cool to see them.
Yeah.
And that's it. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, I'll accept it because I am a fan,
Yeah, there's one line in Fellowship when Saruman says, they left, they're dressed as riders in black. How amazing would that a callback have been like 60 years later to say that to Gandalf, and Gandalf's like, what are you talking about? Like, I thought we took care of this. Like,
you did a whole thing.
Come on, and you just kind of, maybe they're afraid to redo Weathertop a little bit in this kind of dark, dingy place with dark cloaked sword wielding assassins. I would have adored it. And I know that it isn't Christopher Lee, right, who's jumping around. You do get him kind of stepping in and saying a few things, but I like seeing Saruman go to work a little bit. I like seeing Elrond go to work. And I think we talked about this in the past too. I get why they kind of maybe modernized the look of evil Galadriel, kind of more like The Grudge, kind of like creepy, just like witch lady, as opposed to like green light emanating from her. How do you feel about it? Do you like that look?
I think it's cool. I think it's one of those interesting things, because I think the elves are so mystical to begin with. You're just like, oh, the wonders this race must hold. And so I think just seeing more elements of whether their powers or their outfits or their fight or their combat style or whatever. I'm like kind of down for any of it.
Sure.
Just because again, like it speaks to something that we touched on in the last episode we did together, where like the world is going to continue being the world regardless of what's happening. So like the elves have all these other things going on for themselves. The dwarves have all these other things going on, and so the world just kind of keeps on going. And it's just a glimpse into that world. And it's not necessarily making it a huge deal. It's just like, yes, this is what she looks like right now because she's in battle or something. So I think it just speaks to that sense of like, okay, this is a world that lives, and
Sure.
and I just happen to be here witnessing it. So for me, I thought it was very cool. Yeah.
Okay. Do you prefer that look over the Fellowship look at all? If you just aesthetically speaking,
I don't think so. Just
Okay.
because like Fellowship forever,
dude.
you
Yeah.
know? Like it's hard to be like,
Yeah.
Yes, I like something better than when I first saw it, you
Sure.
know. So that's challenging for me.
Yeah, and we don't even get to see Radagast around fight. He does show up, I believe, with the Rustabel rabbits and helps Gandalf away. There's this weird, like, and Gandalf's like, you know, my lady, come with me. And even in one of the trailers, I think it might have been for Unexpected Journey, Galadriel from like a cutscene like moves a lock of Gandalf's hair away from his face. I feel like there was like this like push with like the marketing and a little bit of the movie to be like, what if like Gandalf and Galadriel were like secretly in love with each other but never ever said it? I don't like it. Never. I don't know, man. Like, do you know what I'm talking about?
It's like, totally. I think it's like it's one of those interesting like and again, I think it's like the viewer, like we as viewers, totally put our own like we're viewing this world through our own lens, right? And so we're like, I don't know, mystical woman, mystical man, or maybe, but like in their world, maybe it was completely platonic, you know? So like it's hard to remove that lens through which we see everything, and especially the media and popular culture. But there's definitely a sense of like, oh, what? And then I'm like, well, what's the age difference? I need to look some stuff up here. Like, I got to figure out what's happening. But then you're like, oh yeah, Gandalf is like an angel figure, you know, who happens to take the form of an old man. So like, who knows what he's into?
Yeah,
you know?
And I forget what Galadriel's, is it her husband or like the guy she rules over Lothlorien with?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Or whatever, something.
Celebrimbor?
Is it Celebrimbor? Is he from Lord of the like Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor? Is he the guy who helps forge the wings or the rings? Anyway, it doesn't really matter. It was just something I thought that was funny, and I've heard a lot of other people comment on, and I get why they never followed it up. But at the same time, if that were true, and it could have been, you think she would have been, or maybe she knew that he was coming back as Gandalf the White, and that would have been a cool reunion in Lord of the Rings. But she's like, oh, Gandalf fell. That's too bad. And then it's like all the other elves are singing the lament of Gandalf, and she's like, well, I'm going to terrify this hobbit.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's good. But they banish, I guess she banishes Sauron to the east. And I watched an interview with Christopher Lee, and it's excellent. It's just a little bit. But he says, he says, leave Sauron to me. And you're like, and he said that in that moment, Saruman, for him, was saying, I'm going to go take care of it. I'm going to go deal with this guy myself. And it's funny because in the movie, and the way I took it, was always like he was saying that, but because he was so like, oh, this isn't the thing in the first place, it was almost like he was covering it up. And I thought this was his like kind of final way to be like, guys, don't worry, I got this, not a big deal. And he's like, Sauron, you barely got out of there, dude. Like, that was bad. Like, you know, I don't know if you took it that way yourself.
That's exactly how I took it. I thought it was him being like, I'm gonna go take care of him, and then him being like, they almost found us out, man. Like we got out of there real sneaky. So yeah, I think it's interesting. Like again, it's some of that like puzzle, putting the pieces of the puzzles together. It's like, okay, this is taking place before, so like maybe this is the moment where he gets corrupt. So it does give you a sense of like his timeline specifically about like where and when does he finally take the plunge to the dark side, you know, like when does he decide that the world isn't necessarily worth saving and he wants to side with who he thinks is the victor. So it does definitely do that, like, oh, okay, I see how this fits into the overall narrative of the ring, the saga of the ring.
And kudos to them for like making Sauron still ethereal And even though I always want to see him in his armored form, it must have been hard for them to be like, well, we have to banish like a dark force, like that's basically fog and fire kind of, and they like it's still they convey it well enough. And even though I'm throwing shade at our Nazgul boys who might not even be like full Nazgul at this point, the design of them. Yeah, the design is great. I like it. It just feels so hollow, for lack of a better term. But when they're like, blocking attacks and stuff, I'm like, this is just. I mean, it's. That's how I felt honestly throughout a lot of these because of the CGI with even the orcs and the goblins and stuff. I'm like, it doesn't feel the same, and you can really tell that if you watch the behind the scenes stuff on it that they did make tweaks and changes, and I don't know if a lot of it was because of what they wanted or if it was because of time or ease of use and not having to put actors through just the worst possible prosthetics to be like, all right, you're gonna be in a goblin for the next 12 hours, so get used to it. And it's like, yay. But yeah, I love that scene exists though, because it's all, like its own little mini movie that kind of it's building up throughout the movies and adds to it. I really would have loved to see those ring wraiths show up in the black cloaks again. Oh my gosh, I would have been like
and I think another, like, these films have so many, they're like tropes within tropes underneath tropes, like all these different elements, both from previous films and from like writing themes and everything, high fantasy. And so like I think the trope of like old wrinkly man actually fights pretty hard. Like I think like that's the cool part where you're like, hey, he's an old ghost. Oh my god, he can hit. Like I think that's the exciting part.
Yeah.
So like seeing them fully kitted out with their armor and their cloaks and whatever, like I think that almost makes it you can anticipate the tension. You can be like, okay, well, they look pretty tough. So I think like the element of like he's a wrinkly old ghost man, but oh wow, he throws a punch. Like I think that's supposed to be the adventurous, exciting part of combat.
Oh yeah, and it's got that anime quality too, where they start showing up out of nowhere from different like entrances, and you're like, whoa, when the good guys feel like badasses, like you feel cool, because more often than not, the greatest guys or like the heroes or whomever are usually caught off guard, and it not so often do you get the villain who's like, oh, what, you brought the whole A-team? The A-team's here. Like, they're just walking in, Elrod's like bringing his sword out, and you're like, oh my gosh. And it's like,
I mean, right. Like it's like endgame stuff. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like the portal's opening up. So like to give a sense of like the good guys mounting their big comeback is awesome. Like I'll watch that every time.
Oh yeah, totally. And you'd think Gandalf after being kind of beat up by Azog and Sauron for a bit, he'd be like, you know what, I'm taking a little bit of a break. And he's like, wait a second, I left those dwarves and that hobbit going into Mirkwood. Probably should check back in. And so he decides to head right over to, he thinks Lake Town, but then ends up being Dale, where we see the remnants of the group, kind of the humans that were around who survived, kind of all circle around Bard and say like, hey, you know what? We saw that you killed the dragon. You're our new leader. The master of the lake is dead. So what are we going to do? And he's all like, hey, we should probably hang out in that town that nobody wants to hang out in because they're afraid of the dragon because the dragon's dead, and seems like a good idea. And this is, Manny, this is the thing that gets me the most about this particular film. It's a little bit annoying in the last one, but Alfred. They give him so much to do in this, and it's nothing. And it's so painful, and I don't know why they did it. If you guys have forgotten who Alfred is, congrats. He doesn't do a bad job. It's not the actor's fault. It's just that, like, he's like this, he's such a bootlicker. He's like this, oh, you know what, the master of the Lake Town is dead. I'm gonna join. Bard is my new guy. I'm all about Bard. And then he's also like a coward. And they spend so much time on Alfred. And I'm like, why don't you spend any of that time on any of the dwarves? Like,
really anyone else?
Like, you've got to be kidding me.
He's so like a less tolerable, less compelling version of like Grima.
Oh
right?
Yeah,
it's like him. Like, I just want to side with whoever's gonna win, and I don't care. Like morals out the window, kind of thing. But I agree. Like he's like so much less compelling, and use that time. I'll watch Gandalf read a book, like anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, that moment later on where it's like 30 seconds of just, you know, Bilbo and Gandalf sitting there and they don't speak, and it's like this great scene because they're good actors and it's just like a wonderful moment. That I would double that, triple it. I don't even care. I'll take like, and again, it's not to throw shade at like whoever thought of Alfred or like Alfred is the actor or whatever. It's just that like he's just, there's nothing he adds
Yeah.
nothing, he only takes away. And then they start like having him later on try to flee, and he'll dress up as a woman, and like, and it's this whole like, it's a joke that he's in drag. And all right, maybe that plays, maybe it was for the kids, maybe that was the whole point. It's like, they're like, Alfred's for the kids who are going to see this movie. But it is just, it's intolerable. Like,
it just feels super like empty and like kind of pointless. And I think that's a lot of people's arguments about, you know, why these films aren't super great, is because there is so much of that. I think, you know, you look at Tariel and a lot of other things, and people are just like, why was it included? It doesn't seem to add anything, and if it's not adding, then it's like inherently taking away. So I agree there.
What I do like though is like Bard kind of getting thrust into this whole situation, and he was kind of against it in the first place, but it is kind of worked out in his favor in a sense, even though his house was destroyed, but Lake Town, you know, was kind of whatever, but his kids got out. Like, that's kind of amazing that happened. But now he's the leader, and little does he know that he's going to not only have to fight to kind of get money from the dwarves, but he's also going to act as kind of the interim king of this people, or the leader of this people, when Thranduil shows up with his elven army. And he's and Thranduil at this point, who I still think is just a hilarious character, because all he really wants are those starlight necklaces or whatever. And even Thorin, like, he sees them. Thorin sees them in Erebor, and he's like, I know an elf who'd, you know, pay a king's ransom for these. And it's like, dude, just give him the stuff. Like, it's just, come on. But I love that Bard kind of gets thrown in with this, and you always have this feeling that he's like an elected official who got there after years and years and years of work. He wasn't born into this. Like, he was like thrust into it after some like amazing circumstances on top of all of it, but being like a champion for the people. So when he's hanging out with like Thranduil and Gandalf, and they're like kind of deciding what to do, it always feels like he's just like 1 second away of being like, guys, just screw it. Like, I don't even want to be part of this anymore. Like, like, I'm
also like, he was like imprisoned not too long ago.
By these same people.
Like, by the same folks. And so like, it's always so funny to me that it's another trope. It's just like the good guy, the corrupt king puts a good guy in jail, but then like the good guy wins the day, and we're all like, sorry, good guy, we had you in jail. Or will you lead us? And he's like, yes, I will. So like that, I don't know. It kind of bugs me a little bit. I think there are parts of media, video games, movies, whatever, when people are too quick to forgive about like tremendous things. I'm just like, really? Like, I'm not gonna spoil it, but in Miles Morales, there's a huge glaring forgive moment, and I'm just like, really? You're gonna forgive this? Oh my god. Okay, sure, I guess. You're Spider-Man, not me. So there's definitely a sense of that. I think I was frustrated by it, because I'm like, I don't know. It would have felt kind of cool for him to be like, me? No. I'm not leading. I'm getting out of here with my child, and you guys can all do whatever you want. I don't care. So that would have been fun, but not realistic, obviously.
Well, he could have, because he's like a fisherman. So he's like, you know what? I can provide for myself. And you know what? To be honest with you guys, I don't really enjoy doing this work for you in the first place. So peace out, like, boys.
I never liked you. I think you're the worst. You're all just tolerable. Goodbye.
For sure.
That would
I do like, though, we do get it's unintentionally hilarious, but it's an exchange between Bard, who goes up, I don't know if he's with Thranduil at the time, but he goes up to kind of talk to the dwarves. And you know, there's Thorin, he's up there, they've barricaded themselves in Erebor, and Bard's like, hey, Smaug's dead. Hi, I did that. And I know that everybody's been after me for so long. They're like, well, if Men's Aim would have been so... Well, guess what? Men's Aim was good today. So if you come down, we'll talk about what's due, even though I didn't want you to go in the first place. And they have this like conversation through this like it's like a diamond or a rhombus shape that's, you know, part of the destroyed entrance. And it's like they're kind of on the same level, sort of. And I think I've seen people meme this, or kind of gif it, I should say. But it's like Thorin's talking to him, and he kind of like has a moment where he wants to step away, and he like just slowly moves back, and it's like super disrespectful, but it's so funny, and I love it. It's like,
and I think it just also like points to like the tension between races, right? Like,
oh, totally.
So this movie is about that tension, and we see it in the Fellowship. We see it in the previous two films. But like so much of this movie, I mean, it's like the Battle of the Five Armies. There's 5 different groups of beings that are all fighting, and they all hate each other. So I think it's just more of that, like, where can they like kind of like, twist the knife a little bit. Those moments are always super fun.
Oh yeah, and I love too that like if it would have been the master, I don't think it would have changed too much, but that exchange would have been very different, and the master would be like, hey, like I welcome you into my town. Stuff went down, but I still think you said gold was gonna flow from the mountains. So like, where's the gold? As opposed to like with Bard, who kind of like he helped them out, but then was kind of against them moving forward with this whole thing. So I get where Thorin's coming from, and also Thorin is completely gripped by the corruption or that dragon sickness at this point. And I don't know, there's something so great about it, and I just love just the switch of Thorin this whole time, just kind of being like, I'm this prince, but I've been a nomad, and I've been a blacksmith. I've been the butt of everybody's joke for so long. And he's like, well, guess what? I've got the power now, and everybody get out. And if you try to get close to me, I will kill every last one of you. And it's like, dude, you're hanging out with me yesterday. It's like,
yeah, like we were cool. We were boys like so not long ago. And it's just, again, just seeing that kind of fall into corruption, being gripped by that dragon sickness, which is the coolest way to say greed.
It is.
It's such a thing, and I think in all of Tolkien's work, it's such a powerful force, because like everyone kind of gets, we see all these different characters just getting touched by corruption left and right, and it ultimately destroys them, for lack of a better way to put it. Like we see it with Boromir, we see it with Bilbo. Like Bilbo would have been screwed if Frodo didn't take the ring from him. Gollum is Gollum, like Frodo could barely make it to the end zone. Technically didn't, so like it's just like corruption and greed is like another character in these films. It's just like another character you just can't physically see.
Yeah, oh, totally. You make such a good point. I even think back to like Isildur, who was just like, had that moment so many years ago, and he was like, you know what, I'm just gonna wear this around my little necklace and just kind of like.
The only one who like paid it any mind was Aragorn. He's like, I will be king because I know I will be corrupt. So like, he's the only person in the whole world, in all of Middle Earth, who's like, no, I'm terrified of corruption. I don't want to get it anywhere near this thing.
It's crazy. I'm just starting to come to this like, that we don't get a lot of Elrond saying anything like that to Aragorn. Like, I wonder if there would have been any moment where Elrond would have been like, hey, Arwen, I don't really want you to hang out with this guy because I knew his great-great-great-great-great-great-granddad, and that guy sucked. Like,
yeah. Instead, he's like, he's gonna die one day. Much less compelling argument.
Yeah, exactly. Just emotional.
Gandalf, like in the beginning of the Fellowship, was like,
totally.
I can't take it from you. No, man, don't. No. So like, it's just, I never actually thought about the fact that Aragorn was the only one who paid attention to corruption.
Dude, yeah, he's worried about it, and he's like the only human who's going to turn it down, right?
Right.
I guess Faramir to an extent too. You'll give it to Faramir.
That's true. Actually, very good point.
And a lot of that I think is because he wanted to be like, because Boromir died doing this. He's like, well, I'm better than that guy. Everybody's been saying it since day one, especially my dad.
He saw like, Frodo and Sam. He's like, you guys are adorable. Go ahead.
Get out of here, you crazy kids. But anyway, of course, you can't help but fall back in that Lord of the Rings pit, baby. That Isengard pit. But anyway, so we have this kind of situation, this growing tension as the 5 armies start to show up, and I love trying to count because I think in the movie it's different than what the book counts the actual 5 armies as being, but I could be wrong. But anyway, so we start off with the human faction, which is not really a lot of them, but the elves show up in force because Thranduil will not be denied his bling. He's ready to kill everybody for it, which is hilarious. And then
riding like an elk,
yes,
or a moose.
It's like a super elk, and I wish, and I get why they couldn't do like a legit like elk like that, right? It doesn't. I don't know if it holds up to me, and I don't even think it did at the time. I remember thinking like, oh, that's kind of cool. And you have to think of like kind of cartoon saturation in this, where it's like, well, it's an elk, but it's got 25 like points, or 35 points or whatever it's going to be. But I remember thinking like, okay, I guess that's what Thranduil would ride. I guess.
It's like very like chic
Yeah, it's very
Like it's just
chic.
very like very posh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like his sword is like kind of a katana.
Yeah.
Like which
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. Like I
That's
get it. He gets a few moments
cool.
where he gets to like he skewers like 5 orcs and he cuts all their heads off. But they show up and then like we see that the other dwarves from the Iron Hills I think show up and Dane, Thorin's cousin, shows up. And in the extended edition, we talk about Manny with the forgiveness. In the extended edition of this, the R-rated cut, the dwarves and the elves have it out for a little bit. The elves start flinging their arrows, as elves are known to do.
That's their thing.
But the dwarves have this amazing invention that shoots these ballistas that have like these kind of spinners on the back that propel and kind of expel or repel, I should say, the arrows. And they start. I like looked at this, and I remember seeing this the first time, and I was like, "Oh, those ballistas when they land, they're killing elves. Like it's not like it just nothing happened. They start killing each other." And I get why they took it out, because when they eventually team up, I would think that would be the hard forgiveness moment, I guess, or if they're like, we're racist towards each other, but we're more racist towards these guys. Like,
it's like the enemy of my enemy is
yeah,
whatever, So there definitely is. I totally agree. Like that for sure is one of those moments where I'm like, really, you're eons and decades of racism. You just okay, fine.
Yeah.
You could have just either not been racist in the first place, or had just continued to be racist, but you chose to do both.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine. Just I don't know. That never sits well with me. Unless it's like a setup to like a future betrayal, in which case I'm down.
Yeah.
But if it's just like a flat out like, I think we can put our differences behind us. It's like, can you really though? Yeah. Okay, sure. I'm just the viewer.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I think, like I said, it's kind of predicated on the fact that like the elves didn't help the dwarves, and I'm not sure if that's the first salvo years and years and years ago, or if there's something before that even, and that's why they all kind of hated each other. And I looked into it too. So Dane shows up, and I know him from Muppet Treasure Island. He's Billy Bones. He's a pretty well-known actor, and I don't know, they kind of facial captured him, and I don't know if it was a time thing or with the actor if they needed to do that. It just is there's a little offset. Maybe it's kind of uncanny valley in the middle of a battlefield. I don't know if you get that at all.
Definitely like a Beowulfy CGI,
sure.
Like I would say not in Shrek territory, but like Shrek adjacent, if you will. There's definitely a couple moments of that, and I think also like with the Legolas stuff that I talked about earlier, there's a couple scenes where like
we'll get back to it.
I forget which fight scene it's in, but he essentially like jumps in place and then does like a full 360 like without like twisting his body. He just kind of like goes, he's like, huh, and he spins and then he comes back down. I'm just like, you got okay, sure, whatever.
Physics.
But totally with that face, there's a couple moments where like it stands out, especially if you're watching it on like a very big screen or a very good screen. You're just like, oh gosh, I don't like that at all. It was jarring.
And I don't remember if it was like a medical necessity for him or if it was something like a time thing. Because later on, when he's in the middle of the field and he's fighting and he's like headbutting all these orcs, which I'm like, okay, like that again, you won't see Gimli doing that on Pelennor Fields. Like that's not gonna happen. But anyway, so the dwarves and the elves are fighting for like a little bit, which you don't see again if you're doing the regular edition. They kind of show up and there's this kind of like everybody back off, and it's just kind of, I think, Bard once again, who yet 2 days ago was just a prisoner, is now the leader of this group in the middle of this battle. He's got one good confirmed kill to his name. I don't want to undersell that, but it was very specific circumstances. This is not like the guy you're going to be like, all right, Bard, you take the left wing and you tell us what to do. He'd be like, I don't know.
Experience on the battlefield. He's like, I don't know, man. I know salmon. All right, guys, I know salmon very well.
Yeah.
So like, a little weird for sure.
But then like, and this is what I would call the eagles of the bad guys. We get the wereworms. These gigantic earth-consuming and destroying worms that show up kind of behind everybody, and the orcs kind of pour forth to destroy everybody. If I remember correctly, do we ever see the worms actually fighting? We don't.
Because they kind of just show up and then they're like, all right.
Yeah.
That's cool. Like it's and it's so cool and it's very unique. And I think it's like one of the cool things about the Hobbit is that it kind of sheds some light on other parts of Tolkien's work
Totally.
outside of Earth, and I think this is a good example. But like that would have been awesome, like Lord of the Rings plus Tremors, awesome.
Yeah, dude.
Sign me up, I'm in. But they kind of show up and like dig a bunch of holes and do worm stuff, and then they're gone. They're just completely out of the battle. So missed opportunity.
Exactly, and that's where it's kind of like, well, I don't know. Maybe that was the point of like them to do the kind of the big surprise. But I think there would probably have been some sort of way to interject them and have them be, maybe dispatched quickly or something, as opposed to being like, well, the werewolves are like, okay, so we're done, we're cool. We said we dig the holes, and you said you'd leave us alone. Or maybe it was against Azog's like battle sequences or plans. No idea. But that was kind of a big thing in the trailers. It was like, look at these worms. And I was like, well, how are they going to defeat that? It's like, guess what? They don't have to. It's like if the Balrog showed up and he was like, you know what? You guys made it over the bridge. I'm kind of like it's like Sleepy Hollow with like the Headless Horseman. I'll leave you to it. It's just like, it's kind of a weird thing. But anyway, so the orcs show up. So that, to me, I think, is that 3 or 4 armies, including men, maybe? Is that a 4th army?
With men, elves, dwarves, orcs,
and eagles, I think, are the last one. Weirdly,
isn't it 2 different factions of orcs?
Is it?
There's the orc from Gundabad and the orcs from other place name I'm forgetting.
Dol Guldur area.
Yeah,
we're hanging out there. Yes, because that's another thing, and I think it's in this one too, where they ride, Legolas rides north with Tauriel, and he says like, we're gonna go up to Gundabad, and it's kind of interesting because they go up there, and I love this because, like, first off, Gundabad's a sick name. Second off, I like to do more of the north stuff. I don't know why Lord of the Rings North, War in the North, The Witch King, all that stuff up north. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. But so they go up there, and they have this like really cool, like red kind of crazy structure, and Legolas hanging out with Tauriel, and he's like, my mother died here, or to a Gundabad orc or something. And I'm like, hey, Legolas, this might not be the time, like, to be like talking about this.
Hey, just so you know, a lot of people have died here.
Yeah, so maybe you make a good point. I think maybe it's the 2 orc armies. But anyway, so the Gundabad comes with their bats as well, but the bats are kind of in it a little, not a lot. But so Tauriel and kind of Legolas are the scouting party for that, and they come back and they're like, hey, there's more orcs coming. But I don't know. It gets a little. There's a lot going on here.
It feels like Michael Bay was involved. Like it's just like
it's like Transformers.
It's just like bats. Let's do worms. Well, oh my god, worms! And then they're just like, well, we don't have to have them in the whole thing. They just show up. Oh, it'd be so cool to see worms. So like again, it just feels like this everything in the kitchen sink approach to a battle, and like nothing except for Endgame has touched the Battle of Helm's Deep.
Yeah.
And like, and I mean Marvel Endgame. Like,
yeah,
I don't think any other battle scene I've ever seen in any movie has held a candle to Helm's Deep. And so they have the formula. They know what works, like huge sweeping shots. Like, and the CGI wasn't anywhere near what it was when Hobbit came out, and they still did better. So like they had the formula, and it just seems like they kind of swept that under the rug and just went with a more means better approach in every regard. And I totally agree. I think it just gets a lot. There's a lot happening.
Yeah, and I understand in like the case of this, maybe Endgame as well. It's not like a siege battle, but I will say this: Helm's Deep is better than Endgame. Not even a question, baby. There's too many coincidences in Endgame, man. Like people are like, I don't know how Peter Quill found Gamora. I'm like, how'd you find her out there, buddy? Anyway,
I think. Oh man, okay, yeah. We'll talk about this another time. Yeah. We'll just do an episode on battles,
dude. That would be a sick. Oh, that's a sick podcast, dude. Anyway, but one thing I do love about this fight is that Azog is trying to like rally his troops, and he's got like his little flag set up. Somehow he got it up there, don't worry about it, but he's got his little like, hey guys, these are my directions. And for the first time, I think since maybe even Helm's Deep, we get some sort of like kind of commander who's like kind of leading an army, as opposed and I guess Gothmog kind of does it too, but it's cool to see the bad guys have a little bit of that, as opposed to like run at the wall and kill every single one of them. I'm like,
I totally agree, and I think that is a definite like pro as opposed to cons of these films. Is like, I've seen a lot of videos that are like military tactical breakdowns of the Battle of Five Armies, and there's a lot of cool things. There's a lot of things that are unrealistic, obviously, because it's fantasy, but it shows like intelligence on the side of the
Cool.
bad guys. I think, like, to your point about Helm's Deep being like a siege situation, it very much is like big dumb bad guy run at big good wall,
Yeah.
and like and then everything that ensues after that. So I think it's cool for them to be like, okay, no, like we have strategy, and at least as the viewer, it definitely gives you a sense of like, I don't know if it's going to work out for the good team. Oh God, they know what they're doing. So,
Yeah.
like, I think that's a great thing. Yeah.
This one in particular, we have that moment where like the trolls show up and they all kind of punch down on the hill and they've got like catapults,
Yeah.
or the elves jumping over the dwarves. I think these are things that make a trailer so amazing, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But then like in the movie itself, it doesn't feel the same, and it also like I guess the elves are just like they hate the dwarves that much that they're like, you know what, guys, we would rather die first, or that we're gonna do this better than
Right.
you. We're gonna jump over your shield. So it's like great, beautiful, imagery. It feels kind of like 300 almost, but it doesn't it doesn't make a lot of sense, which is just
Sure.
unfortunate. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And like, coming from the games industry, where when we think about trailers, we're like, yes, we want those moments where the trolls are punching down the thing, so that when people are watching a trailer, like, oh my god, they have troll catapults in
yeah,
the game. I need to buy the game. So like, you do want to show those like stellar moments, or those really like tactically compelling moments. Like I remember in Rage 2, we were like, and this is getting a bit off the rails, but it's like we want to show the abilities of the character. Like, oh, there's the ability where you can gravitate everyone into the sky and smash them down. Let's show that because that's compelling. And then, maybe it doesn't always land. So I think, to your point of like, they showed so much in the trailers, and I remember thinking the same thing. I'm like, oh, this battle, it's going to be crazy. Like, I genuinely 100% thought, I knew how it went down in the books, but I totally thought it was going to blow Helm's Deep out of the water. I
yeah.
totally did. And it kind of just stumbled a little bit, for a handful of reasons. One of those being exactly what you pointed out. I think it's tough to like have these big kind of Hollywood moments, or whatever you want to call them, and then they don't have the same impact when you're watching it in full form.
Oh, totally. And maybe a lot of that is due to the fact that like most of this fight is in like one chapter of the book, and Bilbo, who we get most of this like the perspective of, is knocked out. And it wasn't like
Right.
Tolkien was like, all right, they came and did this, and they came and did this.
Yeah.
There's not as much of that in this, so maybe that's like the loss of direction. And the
Right.
fact that when I started to think about it, this is like a battle on three fronts, because you have the main one in front of Erebor, you have the one that goes back into the town of Dale, and then you have one that's taking place up with Azog and kind of his the way he's kind of checking out the military, or kind of combating or directing, I should say, the troops. And so
Right.
it gets a little messy, and it's just gonna happen. I will say special shout out to the one troll that has like a big piece of stone that's like a triangle, and he runs straight into Dale and then immediately knocks himself out. I was like,
Yeah.
that's kind of fun.
It's great.
Uh, but one thing I don't like, and it bothers me, because there's like one guy, I think it's like there's like one or two of these, and they almost look like Attack on Titan trolls. There's like one troll that like attacks Bard's family, and Bard has to do this whole like he hops like in the town of Dale, like on this cart, and like slides down this hill and like jumps at this thing and like stabs it, and it like catches his hand and everything. But like some of the trolls are like kind of more deformed, and their faces are a bit more human, and like it was offsetting, or it's upsetting, I should say, to me, because like I get like, okay, in Unexpected Journey, you get those three trolls, they have to have kind of more human personalities, but I kind of liked the animalistic style we see later on down the line, and that's kind of gone here. Like
Totally.
it's like each troll is unique, but because they did that, they all feel a little weird. Like,
Yeah, they feel like personified in a way that doesn't necessarily play with the context. And I think
yes,
like context is so important in these scenes, where
yeah,
like you got to know why like the trolls who get turned into stone, like they have personality because they're interacting with a titular character,
yeah,
and they're interacting with another character who has so much personality. But like in a battle, in like a combat sequence, it's not necessarily important, at least I think, for these trolls to have personality.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be forces of nature with stones on their backs or whatever. So I agree there. Yeah.
I'll never forget seeing the trailer for Return of the King, and Gandalf's like, whatever comes through that door, you're a soldiers of Gondor, and they bust through as the trolls in armor, and I thought they were like giant pigmen at first, but it's like one of those trolls fights Aragorn at the end, and if it took off its helmet and it had like this kind of almost human face or something, I'd be like, that would feel so weird to like Aragorn to lose a fight to that thing. I feel like what?
Totally.
So some of that stuff, it does kind of bug me, and like the orcs, like I kind of miss it, because you're right. You talk back to Helm's Deep or Battle of Pelennor Fields and Osgiliath. Osgiliath, by the way, a tiny little fight, but so great. It's so good. Little ambush and stuff in there. Ooh, so good. But Pelennor Fields and Minas Tirith, the limited CGI, I think, made it so they had to think, okay, well, when these guys show up, especially on these gigantic towers, and it comes, the door comes crashing down and the orcs run out, it's a moment where you're like, here it was like the worms, right? And it's like, it's done. Totally. Like they come out and it's like,
and I think so much of like, especially like high fantasy or medieval combat scenes, it's weight, right? Like the swords, they look heavy, and the armor feels significant, and I think there was just a lack of that with so much CGI. Like it's just empty. It just feels so hollow. Like you don't have that same oomph. You don't have that same impact when people are punched or thrown or whatever spinning around. So like I think it just takes a little bit of the, I don't want to say realism because we're fighting dwarves and trolls. And stuff, but it takes a little bit of the impact is probably the best word for it. Just take some of that out.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, if it is primarily the CGI or if it's a change up behind the scenes. I don't know, and we were so spoiled on Lord of the Rings because most of the crew, I think, did come and work on these things, but this is a very different style here, and maybe it was toned down a little bit. Obviously it was, for this one, because there was like an R-rated cut, but Peter Jackson is known for making things that are pretty hard-hitting. And it hurts because you're like, oh, I know what we got. And it's just like, oh, you want to see that again? Because there's like moments, I'm sure you feel this way too, where you're like, oh, it's almost there. Or you're like, I like this, but I want to love it. You're like, oh, I like this, but we're so close. And during this whole battle sequence, we have Thorin, who's just hanging out in the gold room, and he's just suffering the dragon sickness. And like they're like, it's the shadow of Smaug, and he's back, and Thorin's getting sucked into this. I know people hate that. I kind of like it because I'm like, oh, it's a visual representation for how far he's falling into this madness. But he like snaps out of it. And some of the best drama, I think, is from the dwarves. And I saw like a little gif of Keeley saying like, I'm not just going to hide while our brothers fight and die for a battle for us. Like, this is our fight. And finally, when they charge out there and they play the theme that we've been getting, that song they sung back, an unexpected journey into Bilbo's house, and it's just that triumphant, it's like, oh, that's a cool moment. I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. That's Pelennor Fields, that's the Rohirrim charging down. Like
100%. That was the like Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson formula right there. That was like the little crack of in the Hobbit where like Fellowship shown through, right? So like I think I don't know why people don't like that moment, that when Thorin's kind of in his sickness. Like I don't know, there's not a lot to not like. I think it's it's illustrative of what corruption does, and I think again, it's just hammering home. So much of these films hammer home the concept of like no one is safe from corruption. No one. The only people who are safe are the ones who avoid power, which is what Aragorn wanted to do again. I think like again, like it builds to such a triumphant moment, because for a while I remember being like, man, I know how it happened in the book, but like, is he just gonna not fight? Like, are they just changing it that much? Like, what's happening? So I think when you finally see him do his own little, Rohirrim reenactment, I'm like, yes, hell yes, that's awesome. Like, do that for the rest of the film, please.
Oh, totally. Maybe it suffers from the Entmoot sickness, is what I like to call it, or Entmoot kind of feel where it's like the cool battles taking place, like, but we got to cut back to this, and you're like, oh, like, guys, wrap it up. Can we all fight in the same battle now? But yeah, so they get out there finally, and he's like hanging out with Dane and all that, and then they get their little, like, I call them like the Asgard goats, because they all get like their little goats that they get to ride up, and they just are like, they kind of run up to go fight Azog, and There's stuff, Manny, in this moment, like some of the orcs too. Some of the designs of them are really creepy and cool. Like the ones who come after Bilbo when they all get up there. I really like it because at this point Bilbo he's kind of left the group, and he's kind of like, he was giving information to Gandalf and stuff. Gandalf's like, you should probably like don't get involved in this, and Bilbo's like, no man, Thorin's my buddy, like I'm gonna get involved. So Bilbo's there. And at this point in the book, like we were kind of alluding to earlier, this is the point where we do see, and in the movie, Bilbo gets knocked out. Like one orc has decided to use, the handle, as it were, and just knock Bilbo out instead of just, just kill him.
And I will say, I just wanted to interject. There are a lot of moments where main characters could have died, and because of silly choices by the enemy, they don't. Like, there's a couple scenes where Bard gets like knocked down, or maybe it was Legolas, I forget, and then like the orc or whoever knocked him down would just be like, instead of just being like, and you're dead, So like, again, it's the victory through circumstance thing that just kind of doesn't sit well with me. And this is a perfect example. It's like, why do they just stab him? He had the thing in his hand.
Maybe it's a microcosm of a passive versus proactive protagonist, because you don't want your protagonist to win by like, oh, that thing happened in their favor. You want it to be like, oh, they outsmarted or, outmaneuvered this person. You're totally right, man. That's such a good point, because there are times where you're like, it's almost like way back in the day with like Star Wars, like the Tusken Raider, where it's just like, you're like, dude, finish him off. Like, it's like, just
exactly
go.
And I do think the one thing that just popped into my head, and again, I have been playing a ton of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and I've gone down the most ridiculous rabbit hole of Norse research.
I love it.
Ancient Norse people, and like in the Viking Age, there was so much emphasis on fate, right? There is this idea that your fate was put together by these like essentially seamstresses who like strung together the strings of fate, right? And you can't deviate from that. And so there is so much alluding to that in the Fellowship when Gandalf talks about Gollum, right? He's like, Gollum has a purpose, and you might want to kill him now, but like, just have mercy. Like, he's going to be important, and then like, he's the most important in the end, right? And so I think, an argument could be made that because like, and again, I could talk about this for days, but Tolkien was so influenced by Norse culture and Norse mythology, and so many awesome elements of the Norse mythos in his work. One could make the argument that like, the purpose of Bilbo was to get the ring and keep the ring and give it to Frodo, and then for Gollum to take it. So like, I'm arguing against my own point that I just made, but I was just like, that could just be an influence of like, it was Bilbo's string of fate. He wasn't going to die there, and he just didn't know it. Neither did we as the viewers.
Yeah, and I don't remember how they word it. That's really well put. I was just gonna make a joke, be like, "Yeah, I've seen the movie Wanted. I know what the loom of fate is, dude. I know how to bend a bullet." But that's a good point. And I remember in the book it was so weird because I got to that portion of it and it was like Battle of the Five Armies, and I was talking about it, and then it was like, oh yeah, there's a fight here. It's like Bilbo got knocked out, and I was like, okay, usually in this mythos, there's not a lot of like, you got knocked out. It's a lot of like, hey, you got your head chopped off, or like something. Yeah. It's not just going to be like something you can come back from. And then they kind of cut. And then at the end, they're like, well, these are the dwarves who died, and these are the ones who are still alive. And Bilbo, like, that's from his perspective. That's all he's got. And they do tweak it, I think, a little bit here for him to have a moment with Thorin. But yeah, it is kind of weird that you're right. It is frustrating in any type of medium, especially, movies, when you do have those moments where you're like, and I like to call it throwing the fight. I've wanted to make a supercut of this, Manny, for so long, where I go back and I look at all the villains in movies who are fighting a protagonist, who pick them up by like their throat or their shirt and then throw them across a room when they have like a weapon in their hand. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like,
like I'm not rooting for you, but like, use your head, bro.
Yeah, it's like, guys, go back to the first Gears of War. You see a guy get picked up by the throat and stabbed immediately. I'm like, just, that's all. Yeah. If you're the bad guy, that's what you do.
Or if they like, the bad guy picks them up by the throat and just like talks with them for too long, and then the good guy stabs them while they're being held by the throat. Like, that happens all the time too. So like, what's happening?
It's here? Like, I get you want to be like, this villain's powerful. He's so strong. He could just pick up your hero and throw him across the room. It's like, please don't do that. And you know what? Azog actually has a moment here pretty early on, because I love how this gets them killed. Thorin's like, Fili and Kili, and he takes Dwalin with him too, because those are like his best fighters. Like, Fili, Kili, you guys go scout this out. If you hear anything, don't engage, fall back. And for some odd reason, the fog has fallen over this place because it's near the mountains. Anyway, so Feely gets picked up, and he just gets like Azog's standing way above them, and it's like, oh, Feely's been captured, and he just gets run through with Azog's like super claw sword hand.
Yeah.
And you're like,
yeah,
I should feel horrible right now.
Yeah.
It's Feely, and do you know how much he's gotten to say? Not much. The only time he's had like a moment was back in Lake Town in Desolation, and he tells him, he's like, hey man, I'm not leaving my brother to die here. Like, he's more important than Erebor. Like, he's my brother. And I wanted to like, he's like, he could have been like the Boromir of that group, or like another one of like the Fellowship members where you're like, oh my God, like what just happened? But it's like he dies, and you're like, yep. You're like, Azog's killing people.
No, I understand. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And Azog's like, well, I'm taking out the line of Durin today or whatever. I'm like, okay. But I felt bad for Feely, because I feel like Feely got shafted, and then I just think back to like Alfred cross-dressing or whatever, like trying to hide and run away, and I'm like, there's like missed drama.
So
Like come on. I don't know how you felt when you saw Feely get killed, because like obviously you were like me, you kind of knew who was going down. I was like, oh, this will probably be maybe not unceremonious, but it'll be kind of quick. And then it happened. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think it also just like highlights how much like of that impact and how much of that weight has, I don't know, it kind of felt like robbed almost. Like I wasn't going to be like, I want my ticket price back, but like I certainly was like, I wanted to feel more, like I wanted that impact. And again, to your point about like, you know, deciding who gets screen time and who gets attention, I think it was super all over the place. And again, the pacing, right? Like from the very beginning, I was like, the pacing is weird. And this is a great example of it, because things are happening so quickly. And then out of nowhere, it's like, skirt, like everything's record scratch stop, character gets stabbed. So then you're just like, wait, but we were just flying at the speed of light, and now I'm supposed to stop and feel things. And then the movie picks back up. And so I think it just suffers from a pretty tremendous like lack of pacing organization. And so I think this is a pretty unfortunate side effect of that.
Yeah, and I know a lot of this was rushed, so maybe that was part of it too. So like, it's no shade against the people who made this movie. I don't like, these things are all made by so many different people, so we don't like, you can't be like, you're the one who to blame. But if at this moment, if they would have stabbed Bomber and I would have felt more, that's a problem. Like, I shouldn't have, like, if like they would have picked him up, I would have felt kind of bad, because he's been like the comic relief.
No, what am I saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So weird.
You're like, oh man, but he's also like a good fighter. Like, I don't know.
What are you do without your belly attacks? Oh,
exactly.
Man.
Which, when you think back to it, Bomber might be one of their greatest fighters. Maybe Thorin should have taken Bomber up there with him. That would have been like just holding him by his weird little beard. But so they have that moment, and then it's like I don't know if they even show you how Feely gets captured, because like he's one of their best fighters, and it's like, okay, apparently not. And then like it all starts to go downhill from there. Bilbo gets knocked out, and they all start fighting. And I think one of the reasons they brought Tauriel into this is to give Keely something more for when he does perish, because there's more to it as opposed to just another Feely where it's like, oh, one of the other dwarves just died, like who's related closely to Thorin. But that whole like kind of moment with them and Tauriel, like they're trying to work together, but he still gets killed. You're like, okay, like. You know, it's just like, you know, and she's, you know, like crying over him, and you're supposed to feel really bad about this. And again, I feel so bad, because I'm not a stickler for books usually, but I'm like, you're not here. Like, Tauriel.
And that's the thing. Like, it's hard. It's tough, right? Because like, I think you and I agree that it's like, look, it's more Tolkien. Take it at face value, accept it as what it is, because we love this world and we love the work, and we will accept it. But there certainly is a point where I feel betrayed is a strong word. I guess what I'm trying to say is like they come up with this character, Tauriel, who, and I think she's compelling. She's a wonderful actress.
Yeah. Oh, she's great.
But it's like a moment like that, the movie is basically like, oh, don't you feel sad? Oh man, this character we just made up, and now she's going through so much heartbreak. Oh, don't we all feel sad together? And you're like, no, movie, I don't feel sad at all. You feel sad because you just made this stuff up. So I think like it's one thing to create a new character and introduce them. I think that's forgivable. I think that's fine. But to like try to push the viewers to like feel something that like to feel something coming out of a character that doesn't exist in the source material, I think is tough. That's a tall ask. I think
Oh, for
that's
sure.
hard, especially for a group of people like us. Like we're Tolkien enthusiasts and
Yeah.
we're Lord of the Rings fans, and like it's just a tall order. So I think, yeah, I don't know. I was just gonna try to make a Star Wars comparison, but I was like, I don't know anything about Star Wars. So I was like, it would be like if Darth Vader, and then I was like, nah, never mind.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I think again, it just, you want to feel that impact both like in the combat and the physics of it all and in the emotion, and it's just not there.
I just, for some odd reason, I'm just picturing it at the end of Revenge of the Sith, and Anakin is like cradling Padme's body after he choked her, and Obi-Wan's like, standing over him, and he's like, he looks at Obi, he's like, why does it hurt so much? And Obi's like, because it was real. It's just like, he's like, oh yeah, but we have to fight now. See, that would have been great. I wish, in a way, if you're gonna do Tariel, which I think she's a cool character, I don't. This is again, no, like it's a hard thing to make a movie like this to this level nowadays, without trying to bring in some new elements to it, and potentially like, I don't know, a woman as a main character in here, because like without Galadriel, they don't have anything. So it puts Evangeline Lilly in such a tough spot. It puts the writers in a tough spot. It's almost like you wish that they could have introduced her way earlier and been like, actually, she's joined up with their own little fellowship a long time ago, because they're like, hey, we hired an elf, we hate elves, but guess what? She kind of hates Thranduil, and screw that guy. And that would have been more compelling once they were captured, to be like, oh, you're back here, you're working with these guys, and she's like, well, you know what? Like, it's better than working for you. Stuff like that would have been. And then when it got to that moment with Keeley, it would have been like, oh my gosh, like.
Yeah, like at the very least, it would have been like, she's been with us a while, kind of thing. Like, maybe I'm not super on board with her. Maybe she's made up, but like at least she's been here for 3 very long movies. So
yeah, and you could maybe unfortunately, I'd say take Legolas out then. If you got Tariel in there, you just have Tariel do all the Legolas stuff. As crazy as it seems, because you'd be like, oh, you thought Legolas was good? Well, look what Tariel could do. She could do all he could do.
With all the CGI, you can make me do all the Legolas stuff. I'll spin around in circles if you put me in the computer. Which
we need to get to it. The rivalry of the last 2 films now together is Legolas versus Bolg. That's Bolg, baby. Emphasis on the G. And Bolg is he's one tough orc. Like, he doesn't want to go down. But don't worry, because Legolas is a one-man army. I saw a thing for a YouTube video that's like Legolas's rampage in Battle of the 5 Armies.
Yeah, it's literally like Bolg is very tough, but don't worry, because Legolas doesn't listen to gravity. Like, he just does whatever he wants, which is very cool. And I think, like, again, I think in the last episode, we're like, hey man, like skateboarding on a shield down a set of stairs, like, whoa, awesome. And then this movie is like, what if the skateboard had rocket boosters on it? And you're like, ugh, okay, whatever, sure,
Yeah, and it's like Legolas feels like it's like a quick time event for a lot of this stuff later on, from like an old like God of War and stuff, where he does do a lot of these things where it's like, okay, I use the bat to go over and I land on this one weird troll who's like lost his eyesight, and he has chains in his back, and he's got these weird like stilt things, and I'm gonna have him run into this tower, which is going to like, and then I can throw a sword. And it doesn't like he has Orcris at this moment, and he goes to save Thorin, and he throws it, and they do this a lot in movies, Manny. But you don't see it spin. He throws in like a perfect line, because it's like, Legolas, how strong are you? Like, did you get
also like? How is that blade weighted? Like,
I don't know. It's amazing. It's like, oh, we just throw this thing now.
I literally just last night, it was like 2 a.m, and I'm watching things on my phone like an idiot. But I was watching a 30-minute long video of a medieval military expert, essentially like analyzing movies and video games.
Cool.
And so he did like all the he did like Chivalry, Deliverance, Kingdom Come Deliverance. He did Dark Souls. He did everything. And he'd be like, let's talk about longswords. And they'd play a clip, and he'd be like, okay, this is realistic, this is not, et cetera, et cetera. And then there was a clip of, I think it was Kingdom Come, or no, it was Mordhau, of somebody just chucking a longsword. And he was like shouting. He was like, why would you throw your weapon like that? Mm-hmm. He's like, first of all, swords don't fly like that through the air. It would just wobble all over the place and probably hit him with the blunt end. And he was also just like, why would you throw your weapon? Like, now you don't have any weapons. So yeah, like thinking back on that, I was like, why would he? I mean, I know, like, he's an elf, sure, whatever. He's got other things going on, but like, he just throws it like a dart, and it's just like, okay, sure, I
Yep.
guess, yeah.
Because when he runs out of arrows with his amazing accuracy, it's like it doesn't really matter. I wish at that point he would have just like he wouldn't have had his knives. He would have just picked up like Bolg would have walked in with like his big mace thing, and Legolas would have just picked up a brick and been like, "Let's go!"
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, or like at that point, like put the sword in the bow and be like, everything's an arrow when you're Legolas, like
that would have been amazing.
Sure, yes, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that would have been so cool. Like just shooting it with his feet. Like those
Yeah,
old.
I wouldn't put it beyond this movie to be like Legolas shot his sword with his bow. Like it would not surprise me in the least.
And that's like I think this Legolas, his fighting style in this one is what I would say like if you had to look at kind of like a direct comparison between how Lord of the Rings is and how the Hobbit was done, and that kind of that, as I said before, that kind of animated saturation or that kind of like cartoony vibe, it's Legolas. And seeing him perform these things like anti-gravity, kind of running up these bricks as they're falling, and like he's so light that he can just do kind of whatever. He has a few moments where it doesn't always work out in his favor, but he never pulls off a move that doesn't work usually really well. And I remember kind of watching this fight with him and Bolg at the end, and it felt kind of anticlimactic because he does get the kill on him. He like beheads him or something, or catches his head or something, and I was like, oh, like I was like, it's like, done.
Okay, it's kind of over. All right.
Yeah, like
the closest I think it got in Fellowship was like he does the skateboard thing, and like that was still very cool and it felt impactful. But when he kills an Oliphant and he slides down its trunk, like. But like even that, like I was like, it was all right. This is cool. This is really cool. Yeah. But like it just takes the next step in this movie, and that fight could have had so much more impact and had so much more weight. But instead it was just like sit, and it's done. Okay, what? Like it just felt empty,
Yeah. Well, and there's also no Gimli to call him out in this one, where he's like, yeah, that was a bunch of BS, or like it's like
at least with the Oliphant, like that little trunk slide happened after the kill, right? So it was more of like a flourish. It wasn't a mechanical piece of his combat. Whereas in this movie, it's like, oh, he did, like he's running up bricks. He's running up bricks, guys. He's running up bricks. Are we serious here?
That are falling in the air, like on this tower that's collapsing. And there's no glowing to be like, it only counts as one, buddy. Like I don't really care any Bolgs you kill. But yeah, Legolas. I think it just kind of you suspend your disbelief so much. And for these movies, I think if you're going into them, and I know we have one viewer, Ryan, who's like, I haven't gone to this one yet. If you do watch this, which I still think you should, just go in, especially with the combat, just thinking, okay, this is not going to be what Lord of the Rings is. You've seen how the dwarves even fight, where they can kind of throw things to each other, and it's always perfect. Just remember that. But for the elves, what that would be like if they could do almost anything they thought of, like so it's very video gamey.
Much of a reason other than hey, they're elves. Like we see Neo dodge bullets, but it's like, well, it's the Matrix. There's context, right? So again, coming back to context, just be okay with not having much of it, I would say.
Yes.
To Ryan.
And I feel like, exactly. And I wonder too, like they never even make kind of mention about this with other elves, but I think there's something about like of being a royal bloodline or something that allows you to do certain things, except like that only maybe applies to the Mirkwood elves, because like we don't see Galadriel or Elrond or Arwen pulling off moves anywhere near this level. Like it's
and it's also like in the Fellowship, like Legolas tends to deliver lines that are contextual to his actions. So like or other characters, even when Aragorn is like, what do your elf eyes see? Okay, that implies elf eyes are different than human eyes. Context. Great. Or Legolas walking through Fanghorn Forest, he's like, I can sense something that you guys can't. So it's like, okay, elves can sense something that other people cannot. But in this, he's just like tippy tap on the bricks, and you're just like, no one's gonna explain. He's not even gonna be like, I learned that in elf school. Like nothing. Okay, sure, whatever, just accept it.
It's like, okay, I saw him walk on snow once in Fellowship. Pretty cool. I don't know if it's the same. And again, it's just like it's spectacle for the sake of spectacle, and I get 100%. That because I love movies and I love spectacle, I really do. But it has to be earned. When you get the T-Rex roaring at the end of Jurassic Park and the banner falls down in front of it, that makes sense in the confines and complexities of that film. But if the T-Rex rolled in and the Velociraptors were there and the T-Rex like slammed one down and like spun around, threw it up in the air, ripped it in half, like, and the kids like, didn't get smashed. Yeah, and it's like, and then like jumped out of the like the visitor center, I'd be like, what?
Jump backwards, like flipping the camera off. All right, we'd have some questions.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be like, huh? And I know it sounds like I'm being a little bit silly, but this scene is a little bit silly. So when you get to that, like this fight, that's supposed to be like, oh my gosh, this is just like, we've been waiting for this. This is like this is almost as big as Thorin versus Azog, which we'll talk about that in a sec. But this fight, I think, just pales in comparison to some of the other stuff that we've seen Legolas do. Even though most one-on-one fights with Legolas never last more than like a half a second, because he's like, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead. Like, it's, you know, you don't fight Legolas.
Sword, you know?
Yeah, and it's like against Bolg, who isn't like an exceptionally talented fighter. He can just tank some hits. Like, it's not like he's doing these tricky things. It's not like an evil elf, like a crazy orc, you know, is like the hard thing to fight here. But yeah, it's just kind of weird. And it's a point of contention for a lot of people who have watched this film. They're like, okay, because he does a lot of crazy things. So, but we should talk about that Azog versus Thorin, a fight that I think has really cool moments and some fun physics in it. But also, I'm like, wait a sec, what? So we finally get down to it, and so our boy Azog is now sporting not only his sword hand, but he has a chain with like a big block attached to it, or kind of metal thing. And he and Thorin are fighting on like a frozen river, kind of over a waterfall. And there's a lot of like him slamming it down. It's kind of reminiscent of the Witch King versus Eowyn on the Pelennor Fields a little bit. Totally. So there's a feeling of weightiness when, you know, Thorin will dodge it, and it's like, okay, like if he got hit by that, that'd be bad news. And I love that, like there is this element of danger not only between the two combatants, but also because of the terrain they're fighting on, which again can feel a little cheap in certain circumstances, like we talked about in the past, where it's like a hero wins because of like, oh, they stepped out of the way of this thing and fire shot up or whatever else. But they kind of subvert that trope, because there's like a moment where like the ice starts to break and there's kind of like a balancing act, and Thorin grabs the rock basically, and like that has been, you know, hurled at him a few times on the chain, and he ends up throwing it to Azog, I think, and Azog catches it on this ice flow, and Thorin steps off this ice flow, and it kind of tips Azog into the water, and it's like he goes like, under the ice.
Isn't it on like a crank, if I remember correctly?
Is it a crank, or is it just like a chain or something? I don't know. He's like whipping it around. Maybe it is on some sort of mechanism.
Yeah, for some reason I'm remembering him like it was almost like a fishing rod, where he was like, Kasa, and then he's like click, 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 click. Because I remember being like, why is he taking so much time? I may be confusing things here, but I remember just being like, it's taking him way too much time to like wind that thing up and use it again, which I feel, I mean, like is the case with weapons like that, I imagine. But but yeah, it was like kind of you know, it's what we in the video game world call an environmental kill.
Yeah, exactly. It's an environmental kill. But the thing is so weird is that like you get Azog going under the water, and if I'm Thorin, and I know that this guy's tough, I'd be like, well, you know what? I think he's probably dead. I probably would have walked away there. But Thorin's like, wait a sec, I see something in the ice. And it's like Azog underwater, and he's been under there for a little bit, but then he's like starts floating down like the river kind of, and you know, like Thorin's walking with him. He's like, and then he gets stabbed by the sword hand of Azog through his foot, and Thorin's like, ah! It's like, what did you think was gonna happen? And somehow that water is both deep enough and shallow enough for like Azog to float fully, but then also he like just bursts out of the ice. That's like
where did he get that momentum?
I'm like, that a boy. He stole it from the thing that the 360 that Legolas was trying to do. He took it, exactly. Took it from him. He's a momentum zapper. But they end up fighting, and they basically kill each other. Which again, I like this fight a little more because I think it's a little more fun and unique. But it's still like, I don't know why I'm so dumb about this, Manny. I just want another Lurtz fight. I just want another, you know, 100%. one-on-one on the ground. Just like, we're just going to fight it out. Like
when we were talking about Legolas's fight, all I could think of was Aragorn, you know, like having those go at it. Like that felt like, I think, and this is true for video games as well, I think a lot of the coolest fights that take place in video games are the fights that feel like you're fighting a peer.
Yes,
right? Yes. Or the fights that you are fighting a peer, like in Demon Souls when you get invaded, right? Or like in Sekiro, a lot of the characters that I loved fighting against were the ones that felt like they could go toe to toe with me,
Yeah.
with similar mechanics. And so when I look at Lurtz and I look at Aragorn, I'm like, yeah, man, like those two are just brawlers. Like they're just going at it. And you look at Legolas and like, you know, his fight was, they're like two different schools, two different warriors from two different dojos,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And it didn't feel like a peer situation. And I feel like this fight was much closer to kind of that peer combat situation, which I love. I love when it's just like, oh man, like I don't know who's going to win because they're both pretty evenly matched and they're kind of both evenly sized and they both kind of have a similar approach to combat. And then again, like the environmental stuff, it can feel cheap to a lot of people. I think this was done like tastefully. I think this was cool, with the exception of like him shooting out of the water like an orca. I think otherwise it was pretty tasteful, so I'm okay with that.
That's so well put. It makes me just yearn for more Virgil versus Dante fights, you know, where it's like even back to Fellowship with not even Lurtz and Aragorn, but Gandalf and Saruman, where it's like they're kind of going out for a while, but then Saruman like takes the upper hand because like, oh, I guess that means like he's the leader of the order. He's going to be the stronger of the two. He can use his staff. Oh crap! And I think this is an okay fight, but it's like the fight we've been leading to for so long. And I get why they can't really overstay their welcome with it. But at the same time, I don't know. I'm glad they subvert the expectation of him just drowning and being like, well, that's taken care of. But it does feel a little bit weird. And it's hard because you got to kill Thorin, but you have to have Thorin, you know, finish him off and also not be, he's fatally wounded, but not dead. Like you need to still have that moment between him and Bilbo, which I think is probably one of the best parts of probably the whole trilogy, honestly, for me, with the two of them kind of laying there together, because it's like something you get a little bit maybe of, or you think you do, Return of the King with Sam and Frodo, but like this, it's not like Frodo is cradling Aragorn's head as he's dying. Like, you know, there's none of that, which would have destroyed me. But like this, this is great because it's like the full acceptance, and Bilbo's just like, you're not gonna die. We came all this way. You're not gonna die. And he's just like, I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm leaving.
And in such a sudden, what's his name, Martin Freeman, he like only he knows how to do that. How do I explain it? It's like, do you watch the Sherlock? Have you watched the Sherlock show?
I know of it. Yes, I've seen a little bit of it.
So there's a couple episodes where like Sherlock's kind of on the verge of death, and like you don't know if Sherlock's, you know, obviously it's like the middle of the season, Sherlock's not going to die, but and Watson, being played by Martin Freeman, is this skeptical, like pessimist, and he doesn't let emotion get the best of him, but like deep down inside, you know, he loves Sherlock very much. And so like you see that pure emotion come out in those moments of him almost being bewildered by the circumstances, where he's just like, no, you can't die. How can you die? No, like we've come this far. And it was totally there. Like I 100% saw it in that scene with Thorin. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm not even seeing Bilbo, I'm seeing Martin Freeman. And as much as I wouldn't like that in other circumstances, I was like, this is rad, because it's like that inquisitive, like, wait, no, we just came so far. Like, how could you be dying now? Like we've done so much. And so that pure emotion coming straight out of a person was so cool. And I think kind of a saving grace in a handful of ways. But I think it's, I totally agree, one of the greatest moments in all three movies. Yeah.
I wish too that we would have had moments with Thorin being a little angrier with Azog, saying like, you killed my brothers. Like, you know, there's none of that. There's no time for that, I guess. But at the same time, you have Thorin's death scene and then also Keely's death scene with Tauriel and Thranduil and stuff. And maybe it's just because they're kind of like back to back. It's almost like if you'd have had Boromir die in Fellowship and then Legolas died right after him, but like Gimli was holding him. It'd be like whoa, like we're doing the same thing. And I feel like it's just so much more hollow for the Keely stuff, just because you have that Thorin, like that's like the arc of their relationship, Bilbo and Thorin's, and it's just like it's so bittersweet, and just like Bilbo just wanted to be like, man, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, like, you know, things got really bad, and he's like, don't, it's not a big deal, like it's like it's all good. And it's sweet, and I love that, because that really I think is something they should have done more of in this whole trilogy, and it would have really, I think, would have hit so much harder at the end to have that, because it's just like, you know, I want to feel that Boromir death again, and that was only one movie, and then you feel that ramification throughout the rest of the films, and you're like, like that's what I want. It's hard to do, I get, but great performances. Like I said, Martin Freeman is so good. and I can't think of his name. Who plays Thorin? Richard Armitage.
Yes.
I think he does a really good job too. And by the way, great way, like he does a great death. Like he does the like
Yeah.
he does a good job of like just staring straight off, because death scenes are hard, and you can watch like some of the best actors like it's hard to do. There's a lot of like, you know, making fun of certain death scenes and stuff, but it made me think of like Theoden a little bit in his death. And I was like, oh gosh, there's a lot of like cradling someone in Lord of the Rings or Hobbit where you're like,
thing to do. Yeah, I think it's against the law to not cradle someone as they die.
Have to, except it's so funny because you get like Keely and Thorin have this. Feely, it's not like Dwalin's holding. Feely's like,
yeah, he doesn't get anything.
It's like, he died, and if he would have been wearing mithril, it would have, maybe his legs would be broken. But I wonder, do you do this too, Manny, where when you're watching these guys fight, like the dwarves and the orcs, do you mentally check yourself and say, this dwarf is 4.5 feet tall, and this orc is like maybe a regular human size? I'm like,
100%.
I'm like always trying to level it out in my brain. I'm like, so this fight looks a lot different if framed differently, because they make it seem like he's a regular human against like a troll almost. But I'm glad I'm not the only one. I was like, I just gotta make sure.
Oh no, for sure. I'm like, I don't get how this sets up. Disbelief suspended.
One of the last things I do want to mention here, we talked about him earlier, but Gandalf, one of the great lines from this one, just what are Thorin and those guys doing? He's like, to cut the head off the snake. He uses his Magneto voice to just kind of, and it's like, hey Gandalf, I love you, buddy. Maybe you should join him. Like, maybe go with. I love you.
Seriously.
Like, I'm like, oh Gandalf, and he gets a little bit of play there at the very end too, because once all this wraps up and Bilbo finally kind of goes to Erebor, he's like, I'm gonna leave, I'm not gonna say goodbye, and all the dwarves show up and they kind of do like a little, Bilbo's like says a little speech and nods and walks away. It's not the embrace you get in Return of the King with Frodo back in Rivendell, even though I kind of wished for that. But when I looked at all those faces, Manny, of all these, they're great actors, and I like those dwarves. I just wish I would know more about all of them. I'm like, I just want to know about you guys. Like, and I still don't. I don't. You have to watch the extended editions to know anything. Like, really, like, I was like, oh man, it just kind of hurt me. I don't know if you felt that way too.
I totally did, and I think again, like, so much of what makes these movies so special is that world building, is the sense of like, the dwarves have their personality because that's a result of this and the experience they had and the history of their people and the place where they lived and all these other things. And of course you can't get like the thoughts and desires and fears and dreads of every character in the movie. That's unrealistic. But I think just to open that curtain a little more and get a little bit deeper into what they're about, I think, especially because they're so central, and not to mention they're all named, like they're not NPCs, they're named and they're focal points to a degree. So I think to give them more would have been pretty welcome. I do, to your point about Gandalf, I do like that you kind of get, a couple parts of these movies, you see the connections to the Fellowship, and whenever it happens, you're like, yum. And so like, getting a little bit more of Gandalf is very cool. And I will say, again, going down this crazy Norse research path I've been going down the last week or so, Gandalf, I just want to clear the air for everybody who's watching this right now. Gandalf is like 99.9% inspired by Odin from the Norse mythos. They're both these like god, angelic Odin is a god obviously, but these heavenly figures. They both cloak themselves as men wearing gray, and they kind of like walk around the earth helping men and kind of like teaching them and stuff. The one interesting thing that I learned, and I think sheds so much cool light on Gandalf, even though he's already so dang cool, is a lot of people see like Odin in popular culture and popular media as like this like very what's the word I'm looking for, like kind of like set in his ways, like how Anthony Hopkins plays him or rigid and very stoic. That's the word I wanted. Like,
there you go.
Very like very stoic and wise and stuff. And Odin is very wise in the myths. However, he is I don't want to go too deep, but I'm going to go a little deeper in the Eddas, which is where all the Norse myth, the stories come from. They come from the poetic Eddas, which are these old stories, these old sagas. And then there's the prose Eddas, which are kind of interpretations of the poetic Eddas. But anyway, Odin has so much character in the Eddas, and he has his own wants and his own desires, and he's known as the Mad One, and he's he might not treat you very well if you see him. And we're all pretty familiar with the idea of if you die in combat, you go to Valhalla and you get to eat and feast with the gods. So the reason that happens is because Odin is very worried about Ragnarok, which is when all the gods fight each other and everyone dies. Odin is recruiting fighters for Ragnarok. So if you die in battle, he will send the Valkyries down to come and take you to Valhalla. As a side note, oh god, this is going down the rails, Jimmy.
Do it.
As a side note, Val means those who have been killed. Hala means hall. So Valkyries are the carriers of those who have been killed. So Odin wants you to go die in combat. He is pro you dying in combat so he can take you. There's a story in the Poetic Edda where he walks up to, I think, a couple farmers, and he has this like beautiful medallion. And he says, hey, who wants this shiny medallion? And these farmers are very poor. They both say, we want the medallion. He goes, okay, I'm going to throw it up in the air. Whoever's still alive by the time this lands back in my hand, you get the medallion. And they go, awesome. He chucks it so far in the air that they kill each other. And he catches it and he goes, okay, cool. I have 2 more recruits for my war. Right. So he has these motivations. And I think knowing that like Odin, as we know him, isn't necessarily the stoic, fatherly, grandfatherly figure. He's like kind of crazy, and he has his own desires, and he has his own sort of goals that he wants to accomplish. I think makes Gandalf so much more interesting because yes, he is this kind of grandfather figure to Bilbo and to Frodo and to the other members of the Fellowship to a degree, but he's also kind of a loose cannon. You know what I mean? Like he has these moments where he's like, I gotta go take care of business. I'm gonna go take our wizard business, guys. Like he's like this old cowboy, and so I think learning so much about Odin, which is such an inspiration for Gandalf, really changed the way I see Gandalf in a lot of ways because he is this very wise being, but he also he totally rides his own path, you know what I mean? And he has his own story to tell. And so I think that, I don't know, we were talking about Gandalf and the connection between like the Fellowship and the Hobbit. And I think just knowing that, I was like, man, Gandalf is so badass. Like even more than he was before. So I just wanted to share that because I thought it was an interesting anecdote, but really cool stuff about Gandalf. Yeah.
Oh, totally. Well, I'm glad you brought it up because I know that you had mentioned to me before this. You're like, oh, I'm going to talk about Gandalf and Odin. I'm like, I can't wait. I was going to research it just to be like, well, actually. And then I was like, no. I'm going to let him bring it to the table because you're the only guest I've ever had who's going to bring this stuff. And I freaking love it because guess what?
I will talk about Norse stuff forever. I'm like obsessed with it right now.
I would love to have you back to talk about Thor Ragnarok then. Because 100%. Because I've thoughts about that. If it would have been a different movie if it would have been about Ragnarok. That's all I'm trying to say.
It's true. Yeah, they threw it in the title and
it's in the back. It's like Surtur is fighting Hulk in the back. Don't you even worry about that.
I read a super interesting article about Ragnarok. I will send it to you. Please. And we will talk about it someday because it's very interesting.
I'm hoping for is that God of War 2 Ragnarok or God of War Ragnarok, whatever, is just like it's a grudge match, and you're kind of caught in the middle, which it seems to be that way wherever Kratos goes. It's like if it isn't the gods of Olympus and the Titans, it's gonna be the gods of Norse mythology and some demons. So it's
also fun fact: Thor and Loki, they're not brothers in the actual mythos. They're not brothers, guys. Also, like the world serpent, that's Loki's child. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's really weird. Yeah. It's just like wait a sec. So I just imagine the people over at okay. Spoiler alert for God of War. I'm gonna give you guys jump 30 seconds or a minute forward, but
you don't want to be spoiled.
The real question is, how are we gonna do the whole world serpent thing where it's like Atreus being Loki? Like, I don't know. Either way, it's
they're just like, eh.
Yeah.
And that was, like you gotta imagine.
Corey's at the end and he's just like, call him Loki. I don't know. And all I could do in my mind was like Tom Hiddleston. It's like that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing to do. But yes, I want to read up on all this stuff. But Gandalf, I think of this mission too as him and he kind of talks about it back in Unexpected Journey. It almost sounds like this whole mission for Erebor. It's like it's under the guise of yes, we need to restore the dwarves and this would restore order and stuff. It sounds like it's an assassination mission to prevent Smaug from joining up with the forces of Sauron. And I love that that's kind of the goal, but somewhere along the line he's like, oh, Radagast said, hey, there are problems at Dol Guldur, and he's like, I'm gonna go check that out. It might have to do with this, but you guys keep doing your thing, and we're gonna meet back up, and hopefully you guys don't die. Like the
Gandalf side mission, it's one of my favorite things. He did in the Fellowship a bunch of times where he's like, I gotta go read some books, and he disappeared for a couple hours. Like, I'm so down for that. It's great.
It was years later that I realized that he went to Minas Tirith. Like, as a kid, it never registered with me, and then like I came back to him like, oh my god, they showed Minas Tirith in Fellowship, and I'm like,
he went so far away and
like,
back.
And he's like, yep, I was reading some books. I'm like, I love just him in the dust again, talking about those archetypes, like him in the dusty room with the scrolls drinking. It's like, oh, old wizard man in there.
And then he comes back like he just like went. He comes back like me going down a North rabbit hole. He's like, oh, I have so much in my brain right now, I can't handle it.
He's like, it's a secret. Is it safe? He's like, I've seen things, man. You're like
get some sleep.
You're like, Gandalf, did you break into my house, buddy? He's like, no, man, don't worry about it. I'm quick on my feet.
Man, it was the elves.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I love at the end too that he does acknowledge, and I didn't think he was going to, or I forget if he does in the book, but he says to Bilbo, he's like, yeah, man, I know you've had a magical ring for a long time, and it shouldn't be used, willy-nilly, but there's enough magic rings out in this world that he doesn't immediately say like, we got to take care of this. He's like, come with me. he's not like, he's like, oh, take your money, go back to Hobbiton, just live a quiet life, bud. But I do like that he's like, yeah, man, I know that stuff's been going on for a long time. And you're like, oh, yeah, can't pull one over on Gandalf.
Again, talk about world building. He's like, yeah, man, there's a lot of magic rings. It's probably fine. You probably got the ring of whatever, tallness. I don't know. Yeah. So like, it's cool that, in Tolkien's work, so much weaponry is personified, so many pieces of clothing are personified, and of course the rings. And so it's kind of cool that like it gets swept under the rug, but like we know, like the viewers are like, oh, you're gonna be concerned about that later, my friend.
Oh, totally. And I like that for Bilbo's big return, as opposed to like the kind of the undercutting that you get with Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin when they show back up in town. It's like, we're heroes of the world, and all the hobbits are like, welcome back. I don't really care. There's no like, oh, we decided that you were gone so long from Bag End that we need to start like uprooting it. Whereas Bilbo comes back, he doesn't get it. Not only does he not get the hero's welcome, he like people are going through his house and taking his stuff, and he's like, wait, I'm Bilbo, and they're like, can you prove it? And he's like, well, I've got this really weird contract that we signed in the first movie, so will that do it? And it's like, clearly this definitely works. It's like the weird politics of like the hobbits, and I love it because you're like, of course they'd be like, oh well, yep, I guess you are Bilbo Baggins. It's like,
there's so many, and like, dude, so much of that comes from like this really interesting sense of like of law. Tolkien was like super into comparing and contrasting the differences of like little people and big people, little organizations and big organizations, and that comes straight out of the Norse mythos. There's so much of like law there. I'm gonna make it very quick, I promise. There's a story about Loki, and he cuts off all of Thor's wife's hair, and Thor says, you have to go get my wife her hair back, and so he goes to a couple blacksmiths who can make hair out of gold, and he's like, please make this hair out of gold. And they're like, if it pleases the gods, what do we get in return? And he's like, you can cut off my head. And they're like, okay. And then so he tries to sabotage the product, but then they make the hair anyways, and they're like, okay, we get to cut off your head. And he's like, actually, you only said head, you didn't say neck. And they were like, but how can we cut off your head if we can't cut into your neck? He's like, I don't know, you should have thought about it. So like that's like an example of like all these weird like
so cool
shire law, you know what I mean? Like there's this sense of like, look, these are the laws of the land, and the world will keep going, and the law of the land will keep going. And so it's just like those little tidbits of inspiration that come to Tolkien, I think, shine so clearly. And again, it's silly, it's so dumb. It's like, it's a piece of paper with your name on it. Well, the law is the law. And we're like, that's crazy, you silly hobbits. But that's what makes it so special. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it makes it so much better, like, way back when Bilbo signed it for, like, evisceration, laceration, and incineration, or whatever it is. It's like, oh, that thing, that really weird thing that has, like, an amendment and stuff on there is something that Bilbo has kept on his person the entire time. And then it's like,
ridiculous to think that would happen.
Yeah, it's like, after all the, like, running from a dragon and in the middle of a battlefield, he's like, I still have this. And he's got, like, this, and I love that he's coming back with, like, this dwarven garb, and he's got like one like chest that is overflowing a bit, but even though like he tells Frodo in the beginning, he's like, it was hardly overflowing, like whatever, it's whatever. Right. It's like, not that Bilbo didn't have money before, but now he totally does. Like, he's just like, I am very comfortable to just sit and chill with my ring for 60 years. But I love that, him coming back in there, and it dovetails And that's the thing, like, that's why these things can't be divorced from Lord of the Rings. This dovetails right into Fellowship, immediately into Fellowship, basically. And that, I think the ending works better here, where it's like, oh, it's the 111th birthday, and Gandalf shows up at the door, and all I can think is like, I gotta go watch Fellowship.
Yeah.
But then there's like times when they try to do that, and it doesn't work, where it's like, Thranduil's like talking to Legolas, and he's like, well, your mother loved you, and you should probably, and Legolas like, but I can't stay here, and it's like, and he's like, maybe you should go north to hang out with a young ranger. And he's like, well, what's his name? And he's like, well, he has a name, but a lot of people call him Strider. But if you want to find out what his real name is, you better figure that out.
And then they both look at the camera and do finger guns. They're like, hey, and then everyone in the theater does it back to the movie. Yeah. It's just like a little over the top.
I was like, why don't they? I'm like, so I was like, hold on a sec. So if I'm calculating this right, this is like maybe a 17-year-old Aragorn who's like already established himself in this world, and it's like, oh yeah. I'm like,
he's like, go hang out with strangers, son. He's like,
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, sorry, he'd be 27. Would he? 60? Yeah, he's 87. My bad. He's 27. So he's like our age. It's just like he's established himself. Even though I don't know if the Dunedain, if he would have like already become like I don't know if he'd still be young-ish, because he's like he ages slowly. Either way,
right?
It is. So I was like, why don't they just say Aragorn? I was like, is there some sort of copyright thing where they're like, we can't say it, say Strider? It's like
they're just like Strider, and he may or may not be a king, and he wears a cloak, and he might be dating an elf. It's like, okay, guys, we understand. Thank you.
I just feel like Thranduil, like, he's got this such cool, interesting presence in Desolation, and then in this one, it's a lot of just like he's starting to understand that maybe he's been racist for the wrong reasons, where he's like, oh, an elf can love a dwarf, and I'm sorry that, you actually cared about each other, and maybe I cared about my wife, but my son doesn't love me or doesn't like me right now, and he's going to leave, and he should go hang out with this Strider guy.
Who's the guy that plays Thranduil? What's his name again?
His name is Lee Pace.
That's right. I always confuse Lee Pace and Peter Serafinowicz for some reason.
Oh.
They both have like a long British face. I don't know.
No, I hear you. Okay, cool. I thought you meant like the names. I was like, how do you get
No, those are two very different names. But they both look alike, and I don't know. I always think they're the same person.
Which, again, I'm not trying to throw shade on this, because like it dovetails into my beloved Lord of the Rings, and it's just one of the reasons why I think specifically this one, and some parts in the other ones, but this one in particular is very much like it can't divorce itself from Lord of the Rings, because it's like it's just right into it. Because if you saw this without the context of Lord of the Rings, there would be a few moments like we talked about Gimli and Desolation or whatever, but especially this stuff, you'd be like, what's Thranduil talking about? Or like, why is it's Bilbo's birthday? It's like 60 years on. Like, what? He was 51 and now he's 111. Like, what?
Very confusing.
And a lot of it's like a love letter, and it is like a nod to the fans, which is great. And all I want is like, okay, the Legolas meets young Aragorn movie or TV show or whatever. I'm like, if that's the Amazon show, I'll be like, I'll watch it no matter what. But if it was that, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like Aragorn and Legolas have been like, we're buds and bros fighting across Middle Earth. Like,
we're in college, we both play football. Like, that would be awesome. I'm so down for that.
Oh my gosh, it's just like we win every game thanks to Legolas. He's our quarterback and our receiver. You're like, he's
like, runs after it.
Just does like a front flip, and you're like, man, Aragorn's like sitting on the bench. She's just like talking to all the ladies, and looks back. Arwen's up there, and he's like, right? I would watch that show.
High school movie with the Lord of the Rings cast.
It's perfect. But so anyway, like, I know people say this is like the weakest of the three. I think it's all part of that cohesive vision of these three all together, so it's hard for me personally to kind of separate it in my mind. I can see why they think that, and it is kind of centered around one big fight, whereas with the other ones, even Return of the King had like kind of two massive, huge fights in it. But I don't know. I still like these movies, man. Maybe out of the three, it's not my favorite one, but I still enjoy it, even though, like we talked about earlier with the pacing, it is all over the place, because it kind of almost has to be by the nature of how they set up Desolation and ended Desolation of Smaug. But how do you feel about this one overall?
Yeah, I pretty much am aligned with you. I think I don't know. It feels like a betrayal to be like, I like this one the least, because they're all fun and they're all meaningful to us. But I guess like analytically, I would say this is the one I have the most beef with.
Mm.
I know some of those beefs are because I'm like a purist, and that's whatever. That's fine. I'm willing and able to like take that burden off of myself and be like, I'm just gonna enjoy the films because they're great. And that's I think for people who are super passionate about something, regardless of what it is, I think you need to be able to relieve yourself of that burden, because it is a burden, especially when you want to so passionately love this thing. So I think like I had to kind of talk myself into being like, all right, we're just watch the Hobbits and we're just gonna be fine with it. And then like now I'll watch the Hobbits whenever and I'll have a great time. I will say, I think this one I had the most like individual issues with. I do think it like big picture should have been 2 movies. I think that's like the ultimate. That's the answer to a lot of those beefs. I think it would have solved the pacing issues. I think it would have solved a lot of the things that felt rushed. Who knows what? But overall, like again, this we've talked about it for 2 episodes now. This brings us back home, and that's what's important, right? It brings us back into this world, and for so many of us, we'll do anything to get back into the like. Literally, I kid you not, I just paid $26.99 for Minecraft Java Edition, so I could play a Minecraft Middle Earth server that has been 10 years in the making. It's super cool, by the way. Amazing. It's so cool. Like block by block, built by the community for the last 10 years. It's incredible. And it's currently, if you go from one side of the map to the other, it's not done, obviously. But it is in real time the size of Fort Worth, Texas. So it's huge.
Oh my gosh.
I started it and I made it to Bree, and it's awesome. But like that's just an example of like, wait, I can experience Tolkien's work in a different way that I hadn't necessarily thought of before. Sure, $26, $80, I don't care. You know, it is what it is. So and again, this movie brings us back into that space, and that's what's important. That's the meaningful part of it. Like I gravitate towards that kind of that connection anywhere. Like when I was a kid, after I watched the movies, I was like, I was like a fiend. I was like a drug addict. I was like, I need more Middle Earth, and I bought like the trading card game just so I could be like, yes, trading cards with Aragorn, yes. So like, and that's still true today. Like I'll buy this stupid axe so I can keep it on my wall. You know?
Oh, it's so cool.
So it's like I welcome anything. So overall, I think this is a total worthwhile thing to watch if you haven't yet. And if you have, go watch it again. Just watch it again, have a good time, and you'll be better for it.
And if you're like one of the Ryans out there who watched, Unexpected Journey and watched Desolation of Smaug and didn't watch Battle of the Five Armies, yeah, you probably should. You might even be able to watch it just by itself now because of the weird way that this one starts with the dragon sequence. And Ryan, I'm sorry, probably if you're listening to this whole thing, you've been spoiled on the whole film, but don't worry about it, because then that way you'll just be you'll be fine.
What's up?
But I'm totally with Manny on this one. I think these movies, again, the issue that I personally face is that no matter what, I compare almost all movies to Lord of the Rings, and that's not fair. Lord of the Rings is for me the Everest of filmmaking. Nothing has ever been better, and I'm not sure anything ever will be. Even when I've gone back to look at these and kind of compare them to what we have modern day, sure, I can see little things where I'm like, oh yeah, that's clearly not Elijah Wood as a Hobbit, it's a stand-in or something. But they're so minor that like it's only because I've watched them and analyzed them that I ever find it. But everything's so amazing in them. So if this isn't going to be Lord of the Rings and nothing else will be, this is still pretty good. If you were just coming into Lord of the Rings for the first time, or this mythos of, I should say, Middle Earth, I don't think this would be a horrible entry point for you. I just think Lord of the Rings is a stronger entry point because it's more impactful. I think it's more emotional. It feels more grandiose. And also, so much of The Hobbit is referring back to Lord of the Rings. Because if they would have made it out of order, I'm sure they would have done a ton of Hobbit references within Lord of the Rings, and they still do in the extendeds, but if you just watch those extendeds the first time, you're like, oh look, it's like Sam's like, hey, Mr. Frodo, it's the trolls that Bilbo was talking about. It's like, okay, Sam, I'm dying. Like,
when did Bilbo talk about these? Was I not there? Oh no,
he's telling the children or something. It's just these movies I think are still really solid. There's a lot to like here, and there's a lot of dedicated, passionate people who are still working on these things, and I'm just hopeful that whatever Lord of the Rings thing we get next is, so far as the TVs or maybe even a movie one day, it returns to form, because this one has some of that magic, right? Like you said, we try to get back to that world.
Totally.
I remember seeing a petition for people who are trying to build their own real life Minas Tirith, And I had some family members like, Jimmy, you should go be part of this. If you're just even carrying plaster around, you could live in Ministerial. I was like, that might be a lot. And also, I was thinking about the construction of that, and I was like, we need a lot of money. But people are just so passionate, and you just want to get back to Middle Earth. The way that Jackson has kind of created and brought pulled forth from the pages of the books of Tolkien. It's great. I like these movies a lot. They're not Lord of the Rings, but if it comes down to it and they're on, I'm gonna watch them. I will still go back to them. There's a lot to like. And even if Battle of the Five Armies, like with you, Mandy, if there's problems I have mostly with this one, it's mostly just because they had to stretch it to 3 films. That's probably why Alfred's there. It's probably why Tariel's there.
I think for people like us, it would take so much for us to be like, I didn't like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think about it similar to how I look at the Netflix Cowboy Bebop live action adaptation, right? Like I love Cowboy Bebop. It means a lot to me. That live action is either going to be incredible or it's going to be really good. You know what I mean? Like I highly, highly doubt it'll do something that'll get me to be like, ugh, I didn't like that. And with Tolkien, with The Hobbit, with Lord of the Rings, it's even more true. Like, I don't know. I can't even fathom what it would take for me to be like, I didn't like Gandalf dies in the first movie. I don't know. I guess he kind of does, but hey, here we are. But yeah, like again, like I don't know what it would take. And so, maybe that doesn't make us the best like film critics for this series.
Maybe not,
but I think we've done well with being objective. So
we try.
All I can say is just go watch them. They're really good.
Go watch them. And thankfully they were able to get pretty much the entire cast from Lord of the Rings back. It's not like they recast Saruman, or even with the hurdles they had to jump over with Saruman, with Christopher Lee at the time, having to shoot all of his stuff in London on a green screen. I think they do a really good job with it. If you know about that, you can like tell in the scenes that like maybe they're not together, but when they're sitting down at the table, you're like, okay. And also Christopher Lee was like an incredibly great actor, so it probably didn't matter. I also,
he was also like 1,000 years old. So
yeah, he's like, very
credit's due.
Oh, for sure. Or like I know that Ian McKellen was having a hard time shooting like the Hobbits, or in Bag End with the green screen. And I would imagine it would be tough as a classical, like I think he's classically trained actor, but they're like, all right, try to act with like 11 other people that aren't in this room right now and go. And it's like, what? Like that's hard. That's hard to do. But man, you're right. I don't know what they'd have to do to like really like, it'd have to be like some sort of Aragorn smear campaign in the next movie. And like, I don't know, they blow up Helm's Deep with like a bomb, or like, I don't know.
Like Aragorn like uses a bunch of modern racial slurs. Like I have no idea. Like it would take a lot, man, so
or just Aragorn was secretly racist the whole time. Like they try to deconstruct him. It's like a Luke Skywalker thing. They're like, Aragorn's like, I was the king and I hated it and I hate Arwen, and it's like he's telling that to his son, and his son's like, but why?
Like, what's happening, Dad? I hate it when you drink.
Here's a map to come find me, but I won't give you the last piece until you're 18. Like it would have to be something like real bad. But I think everybody should go check this out. And I know that, like, I'm not sure promote other streaming services. These are all on HBO Max right now. They're not the extended editions of them, I don't believe. I think they're just the cut and dry theatrical releases. So what I always recommend, especially for people who are trying to get into any of these movies, please just watch the theatrical version first, because you could jump into the extended editions. It's just a lot. And it's basically like, if you love this, here's like 30 more minutes of it, and you're going to appreciate it. Because if you don't, and you're going in the first time, you're like, wow, there was a lot of stuff there that I don't know why they have it in there. And it's like, well, that might be extended stuff. So with these movies as well, which is crazy to think that there were extended cuts of these movies too, which is like, oh my gosh, like Jackson and crew, you got to give them credit for like taking something like this and really like making a lot from it. Like that's amazing.
And Five Armies is the shortest of the 3. And it still feels like a lifetime. So.
Yeah, it's a long movie. So go in, and also maybe don't binge watch them all in one day. Like that's another thing people like. They're like, what if I watch them all at the same time? I'm like, probably don't. Like
that. No. Just space them out. take your time.
Yeah, enjoy it. Yeah, I'm excited to like hear what other people think about these things because like I want to know if people are going back to them or if they're kind of enjoying them. I've talked to some people who have revisited them recently and they're like they're pretty good and they are getting on 10 years now. So it's kind of getting to that point where I wonder if we're all going to become a little bit just nostalgia, not only for Lord of the Rings, but The Hobbit. Eventually, we're like, that movie, they're 20 years old, and like, well, they're pretty great. They've got their problems, but I kind of love them. Like, I don't know if that's going to happen with this, but I kind of hope it does,
Yeah.
So, Battle of the Five Armies, pretty good. All things considered, Well, Manny, anything else you want to say about Battle of the Five Armies or any more Norse? I could just listen to you talk about Norse stuff all day, dude. This is so cool.
We'll do that off air someday, but yeah, it's a lot. No. But no, I agree with you. I think it's well worth the watch for sure.
All right, well, we are going to start to wrap up the show here because as it just happens to be, we always talk about these things for like 2 hours. But we're going to move into the next segment of the show that I like to call, that Manny likes to call, that everybody likes to call, Time Killers. It's the games we've been playing, the videos and movies and TV shows, the things we've been consuming. Manny, you talked about Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Do you want to start there?
Yeah, I will start there. I've been playing that a lot. God, it's hard to. I have a hard time knowing how long I've played a game without like looking at how long I've been playing it.
Sure. Yep.
It could be 20 hours. It could be 120 hours. I have no idea.
Demon Souls. We look at Demon Souls.
Yeah, Demon Souls. I was meticulous before I logged off. I'm like, how many hours did I? Okay, cool. 212. Good.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
Yeah, a lot of hours. It's very good. I think it feels. I haven't played an Assassin's Creed since the first Assassin's Creed, so I'm totally Assassin's Creed noob. But yeah, that like this setting, and I shout out to my friend Jess. I work with her, and when the game came out, she's like, "Oh, I'm so excited!" She played all the Assassin's Creed, and she's like, "This looks so cool. Vikings are so rad." And I trash talked it so much. I was like, "All Assassin's Creed are the same. Vikings are played out." Blah blah blah. And then I started playing, and I texted her an apology. I was like, "All right, yeah, nope, I gotta apologize when I'm due to apologize because it's super fun. I like it a lot. The combat feels a little bit loose, but I am coming from Demon Souls where the combat's very snappy and incredibly polished. So, I'm totally fine with that. Open world games, I realize I haven't played an open world game in a very long time, and so I think I get intimidated by like huge maps now in my ripe age of 31. I just got to like London, and but it's like ancient London or whatever. It's spelled with a bunch of U's. It's like London.
Yeah.
And it's huge, and like there's all these icons, and I'm like, I'm scared. I'm just gonna go raid. So I just raid a bunch of small villages and take my aggressive on the church. And so that is very fun. And then like, because I've been so into that, then I'm like, oh, well, I got to know everything about Norse mythology. So I've been learning a bunch of stuff there. I've been reading Norse mythology by Neil Gaiman. It's very good. And then I started rewatching the Vikings TV show, which is also very good. I watched I think the first 2 seasons in college, and then I just kind of dropped off completely.
I did like the same thing. I watched like the first 3, and then I just was like, well, that's Vikings.
Yeah. And so I picked it back up, and I'm like, yeah, cool. To the point that oh God, Jimmy, I get into things so easily.
I love it.
You could be like, hey man, airplanes are pretty cool. And then like in a week, I'm like, I have my pilot's license. I've done 120 hours of solo flight. That's just my nature. And so it's gotten to the point I just purchased 2 very old axes, like used axes, on eBay, and I'm gonna taking the heads off of them. I'm restoring them. I'm covering them in brass, and I'm refitting them to new handles. I'm gonna try some engraving. I'm lost, Jimmy. I'm totally lost.
Cool. No, you're amazing. This is wonderful. You're the coolest friend.
I'm just like, I want to be able to look like a Viking just in case there's a raid of the town I live in. So yeah, super hard on Norse stuff right now, and not much else. I mean, like work stuff, and there's another fire truck running around outside.
Time to raid. Grab the axes.
It's the raid I've been hoping for. So yeah, literally, I think that's actually it. I think all of my popular media, books, TV shows, and video games are all Viking stuff. That's weird. But yeah, so beyond that, I will say, I'll add, just because I live in the Washington D.C. area, with everything that happened there was that one individual who was covered in Norse tattoos, who was in the Capitol building, and I did a bunch of research on like how white supremacy and Nazis co-opted all of these ancient Norse symbols, and it's really interesting. They literally just took it and tried to pass it off as kind of their own, and they completely made up their own meaning, which is kind of their thing.
Yeah.
So anyways, that was just like an interesting, like kind of like more like, I don't know, scholarly rabbit hole I went down. It's like,
sure.
where did this happen? Like, where did that overlap take place? So that was really interesting. Yeah.
And now you were on a list for the FBI. They're like,
now they're like, we should watch this.
Exactly.
Guy. That's probably one of the cops have been circling me for the last.
Yeah, they're like, he's in there. He's on the podcast still. I think I remember seeing or reading something that like the symbol, the pinwheel, is like flipped to Utopia for.
Yeah.
Isn't that? And I don't know if that's not Norse.
Like it kind of looks like a. Oh, you're talking about the swastika.
Yes.
Yes. I was like, pinwheel. That sounds pleasant. Yeah. The swastika, originally called something else, was used. I think I may get this wrong, in Hindu religions. I remember when I was in India, I saw it everywhere.
Okay.
It was like on walls, on like religious buildings, and like different sculptures. And at first, I was like, "What is happening?"
And he's like, somebody better check in on this, man."
Yeah.
Like,
and somebody was like, "Oh no, like it's actually like if you turn it like 90 degrees, it has a completely different meaning." And I'm like, I am still uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's another good example of they're like, let's take this thing and make it awful, you know?
I just pictured you, Manny, in India. It's just Gandalf and Dol Guldur. He's like, something's going down over here. Like, checking it
Where's
out.
the bad guys?
Yeah, he's like, I'm here. I'll fight them. I'll fight all of them. That's great.
So yeah, it was just interesting stuff. But yeah, that's been me. What about you, my friend?
Dang, that's great. Okay, I wanted to bring this up with you because I've been talking about this game a lot lately, because we did the Critties last week, and I shot an episode of Game Sharks, which is a little, I don't know if you know about this, Manny. I do a little TV show around here. It's on television. I know, I can't believe it either.
Oh yeah, you have told me about this.
I know. I try to tell everybody. It's usually the second thing I say about myself. I'm like, they don't pay me. It's just for fun. It's great. But anyway, so I've been talking about Ghost of Tsushima, and I wanted to know, because you played that game. I remember because you posted these great screenshots, and I feel like the combat in that game is so incredibly tight, and maybe the best I've ever played. You know, after playing Demon Souls and then AC Valhalla right now, like, going from an open world game like Ghost to Valhalla or Demon Souls, were you like, oh, I wish like when I hit an enemy it stuck in them, and then I was like that? Like, is there any of that?
I totally forgot I played Ghost until you just reminded me. That is an open world game.
Yeah, I help.
Yeah, I think so. Like, as you've been playing Dark Souls, you know that in Souls combat there are rules, and those rules are 1000% consistent, and nothing will never change. If you don't parry at the right time, you won't parry. If you do parry every single time, you'll nail it every single time. You're slower when you have more stuff on you, two-handed versus one-handed, shields, yada yada. The rules are law in the Soul series games. So it's hard to like. I would put AC Valhalla and Ghost in the same category of combat, and I would put Demon Souls in another category. Demon Souls feels so tight and polished and snappy because those rules are followed to a T, and I know what to expect. Whereas with Ghost of Tsushima, it's a little more fluid. There's more unpredictability. There's more. There's a little bit more room for error, and I think that's really cool because it fits the style of combat, and a katana and arrows, and like the fluidness of that combat is beautiful. I think AC Valhalla goes for that in an awesome way, and I think it does extremely well. I think it falls just short of Ghost. I think it and it's different. It's like you're swinging, like I'm using a hammer weapon right now, which is very cool. But like, you know, it's not a katana. It's not flowing. It's not beautiful. So I would say out of all of them, I think like Ghost has like a very pure, very cool arts combat style. Demon Souls is awesome, but again, it's only because of those rules, and I know those rules very well.
Sure.
But so I think it's just kind of in a different category. I wouldn't say it's like better or worse than anything else. I would just say it's like, I don't know, it's very different, and the rules never change. So.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Well, that's a good thing you brought up, because like you said, I've been playing Dark Souls. I know people are like, wait a sec, Darksiders? No, Dark Souls, believe it or not. So I've had a little help. I've had some Sherpas. But I did play by myself the other day, just a little bit, because I was like, I've done this before. Like I went and I beat the Gaping Dragon, which I'm pretty sure is not safe for work. So I was like, I don't want to stream that. But there's something. So I have accessed a weapon that I shouldn't have access to, and that is the big club or the giant club. And it's a weapon that's a 2% drop rate from these big boys. I call them Phil, Will, and Bill. And I farmed these boys, and I finally got this thing.
Those are like the big trolls in Blighttown.
Yes, exactly. So I got that because I had the master key early on, so I went down the back way into Blighttown. Got this. Eventually, it took me a long time, but I got this thing. And my issue is clipping versus non-clipping. Because this thing's so big that sometimes I get away with doing things and shenanigans where I like hit through a wall, and sometimes I bounce off a wall, or like when I swing in a way. So like when you talked about like the very specific way, and maybe Demon's Souls is better about this, but there's many times in combat where I'm like, I'm gonna hit this guy, or I feel like the reach is like just like it's an inch short of something, and I'm like, I feel like I'm hitting him, and it didn't, or like I kind of cut through things with it. Where, and again, this is a Demon's Souls. It's a bit older now, but it's good. It's so combat. It's the combat is the game. And I know a lot of people.
The one thing I would say to that is that this is going to sound like I'm just making excuses, but it's consistently inconsistent. You know what I mean? So like, I would have the same problem. The first weapon I used in Dark Souls was a Zweihander, the huge two-handed sword. Oh, yeah. With like an extra kind of handle area, and I would try to use it horizontally in hallways, and it would get stuck on everything. And so the game forces you to be like, okay, I need a thrusting weapon in hallways because I can't if I'll hit a wall. But then like in other places, it'll be like, oh, I know that if the wall is like this and I hit at a perpendicular angle, I'll hit whatever's on the other side of it. And so it's those weird things like rolling off a ledge, you'll take less damage than if you just fall off a ledge, and like just silly things like that. And all of the cheeses that you can do. And there was I tend to ramble on this show, but there was a glitch in Demon's Souls where you could like have infinite luck if you used a certain item at a certain time. And there's a weapon that scales on your luck stat. And so you can one-shot everything in the game. And and also your luck is infinite, so you get the most rare drops of every enemy.
Sick.
So that was like good for like farming and stuff. But there's like silly things like that. But I totally get your frustration. I mean, the first time I played Dark Souls, I must have almost broke my controller like a dozen times, just being like, "What? Yep. No!"
And it's funny because like I've gotten to this point before in Dark Souls, and so I played it before, and I've beaten Bloodborne. So I think there's something about the level design in Dark Souls that's frustrating to me, especially in a game. And this is out to all developers, and I said it during one of my streams: if you can make a swamp or a sewer level, that doesn't mean you should. Like just don't, especially putting them back to back. You guys are mad people. Like it's just like welcome to the sewers, welcome to the swamp.
The best way I've heard the map in Dark Souls 1 described is a Metroidvania map. You have like a long, room to room, and maybe some ups and downs. And somebody took that piece of paper and just crumbled it into a ball and said, "This is your map," right? Yeah. So you're like traveling all these like ins and outs and ups and downs, and it's crazy. It's crazy.
And so, like I said, it's so combat oriented, and I totally get that. And there's something to it. The issue I still think I have with the franchise is that it has a lore to it, but you have to look up lore videos to understand it. They don't present the story to you, to me personally, in a compelling enough way, or a fleshed out way enough in it where I'm like, oh, I want to, like, I understand what I'm looking at here is this character did this or did that. There's just it's a lot of cryptic stuff. And for me, a truly remarkable game tries to do both. And again, this is my own personal feeling about it. I don't think these games are the worst. I still have respect for them. I think I'll see this one through. And I'm trying to get like a co-op thing set up. Because I've had some really crazy stuff, Manny. I summoned Solaire for the gargoyles, and it went in a weird way. So Solaire decided, and for people who don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry. Solaire decided to go and kill all the guys that I ran past on the way up. As I traversed the white fog.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, so I was standing in the boss arena, and I was like, Solaire. And then you just like hear this like doo, 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 and then like I get some souls, and I was like, Okay, so Solaire's working somewhere.
Yeah.
He finally gets. I can see his sword and his shield, but he can't get through the white fog. And I was like, oh, this is going to be problematic. I'm like, I fought the gargoyles before in the past. I'm not like I was talking to people in chat. I'm like, all right, we'll see if I use pine resin on this one because it'll make me stronger, like lightning or whatever. But we'll wait to see how this goes. I start fighting the gargoyle, and then the other one comes up. But then they get aggroed to Solaire, who's stuck in the white fog. So they run over there, and I'm like, I'm a cheese it. So I like run over there. I'm like, I'm gonna take this. This victory is gonna be mine. So I won on the first try against the gargoyles because half the time they were like trying to get to Solaire and they couldn't do it. I was like,
have you fought the Capra demon yet?
I have, and I've beaten him. It was first try.
Wow, that's incredible.
I have fought him in the past, but it's been a while. But I did go and get him. Basically, what I've done, Manny, is I've over-leveled him at 40 strength.
Okay.
And once I got to him, I took him out in like 4 hits, maybe, or something. It's the dogs you got to watch out for. So
the first time I played it, my brother-in-law introduced me to Dark Souls, and it took me a very long time to play it. And the first time I beat the Capra Demon, it took me 4 years to admit this to him. I lobbed fire bombs over the fog wall, and I killed him.
I've heard. I had somebody tell me that. I was like, "That's cool." So, like, does the fog wall just go away?
Yeah, after you kill him, the fog wall goes away. It disappears, and there's just a dead Capra demon on.
You're just like, nice.
I will say, I wanted to add your comment about like lore. So I agree with you there. It's like the lore is in item descriptions and stuff like that. You can connect it if you wish. Hidetaki Miyazaki, the guy who essentially wrote and directed Dark Souls, when he was a child, he didn't know how to read. He came from a very poor family, and he didn't have like a full enough education where he could learn how to read as well as he should. So he'd go to the library and he'd find all these books that are well above his reading level, basically, and he could pick out some of it, but the rest of it he had to make up his own connections. He had to essentially create his own lore in these books, and he wanted to bring that element to the game. He wanted this like non-spoken, not over the plate kind of lore and story. And so it's funny. I've heard so many people complain about the same thing, and I think it's a totally valid complaint. Sure. But it's just also funny that that's extremely intentional for like a really specific tiny reason.
That's so weird. It's so funny. It is wild. It's so like I feel bad because like I get that's like a cool artistic choice, but then it's something that I feel like I would hit more in like an indie game. They'd be like, well, we never actually. It's there in the context once you think about it. But it just makes me care a lot less about like my character in the world. I'm like, there's a super dragon and it's got teeth all over its body. I gotta kill it. There's no talking. It's just like, and if everybody I talk to, even if they're nice people, they all sound like they're going to kill me. They're like, thanks for helping me out.
Try to and like half of them trick you anyways, like kick you off ledges and stuff. Yeah, I totally get it.
So Miyazaki,
not a very well.
Yeah, we like to joke during the streams of they're like, Miyazaki wanted the game to be this way, and I'm just abusing the system, like, take that, Miyazaki! Like I'll like crush like an enemy with this club, and I'm like way over leveled for this early portion of the game. I'm like, ha ha ha. But that's all part of the fun. I also had the chance, and I didn't realize this wasn't a human, but I had like a summon come in, and I beat it in like 2 hits, and then I summoned that thing to go help me fight the Quelaag, or the Witch of Quelaag. And that thing could take, my summon buddy could take a lot of hits. So it was a lot easier of a fight.
Oh, the like spider lady.
Yes, yeah. So the spider, so the spider lady.
And Maneater Mildred, if I remember correctly.
That's right. Yeah, Mildred. She was kicking it. I thought she was a real person at first, but she's not. I was like,
she's actually she's in all the Souls games.
Oh, cool. She was great. Yeah, I 2-shot her because she was fighting me, and I was just like crush, and then she had to like stand back up, and then I just crushed her.
Dude, you're lucky. She hits like a truck. It's crazy.
Oh yeah. Well, I hit like 2 trucks. No, just kidding. I wish, maybe this is better in like future Souls games, but I do wish there was more of that impact feel that you get in Ghost. Like when you get a kill in Ghost, you like land it, and then you're like, and you're like, I don't know if
you that's... gotta do those parries. If you do those parries, you'll get that impact.
I suck at the parries, and it makes that noise, like, dong, and it's like, what the... I do wish they had different backstab animations, though. It always is the same. It's like the...
Yeah, like even like credit to Bluepoint, they did such an incredible job with a game that came out I think in 2009. The animations for backstabs, every weapon has 4 animations. It has a front one-handed, a front two-handed, a back one-handed, and a back two-handed.
Wow.
For parries and backstabs.
Cool.
So like they're gorgeous. They're beautiful. Like,
oh,
talk about impact, dude.
I love
They're
that.
crazy.
That's great. Yeah. But anyways, that's with Dark Souls. And then also I've been playing a bit of Deep Rock Galactic. I was trying to play it with other people. I've done it a little bit. I really would love to play that with more people, but it's kind of hard to find people sometimes. So I just been hopping in groups or playing by myself. Really fun game. It's $30.
On PC?
I'm on Xbox.
Okay.
It has crossplay if you have it through the Microsoft Store, but if it's on, if you have it on Steam, you can only play it on Steam right now. I don't know if Steam has been weird about crossplay. I don't know.
Okay.
But it's really good, and if you have Games Pass, it is already on there for people who have Games Pass. So it's if to sell it to you, it's like Left 4 Dead, but you're a dwarf and you mine for minerals and you kill alien bugs. And I actually helped make the game, believe it or not. A long time ago, Press Play, the people who it was a group beforehand that ended up dissolving and becoming part of, I think, Ghost Ship, who's this group, or Coffee Stain, who helped make this. But they put out this thing a long time ago that was like, all right, here are 3 game ideas, vote on it. And one of them was a fantasy-driven first-person shooter where you played as dwarves in more of like a Tolkien-style way, and you fought goblins in the caves. But then they just tweaked it eventually and made it into space and aliens and stuff. And I was like, I voted for that one, and I'm glad it got made. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, really, really cool game, even if you're playing by yourself. And then finally, I've been playing Valkyria Chronicles 4 again. I got to finish that game. Tactics games, man. I like squeaking through on some of these missions. And I'm like, you know what? My grade might have been a D on that one, but we got through, and I feel good about it. So yeah, man, Valkyria Chronicles 4, much like 1, not like 2 and 3. Those are very different games. So
good to know.
Yes. But anyway, that's pretty much all I've been killing time with, along with a bunch of Batman stuff. Batman Beyond. I've been binging Batman Beyond. Holy goodness. I got to go back to animated series at some point, but I think Batman Beyond's maybe my favorite Batman stuff of all time. I don't know. Is that too much to say? I love it so much.
Anime, I forget what it's
Batman
called.
Ninja.
Yeah, have you seen it?
It's on here, and I haven't watched it yet.
Okay, it's really good. I would
caveat.
I don't know if you're a sub or a dub guy.
Oh, they have it in Japanese.
Yeah, and the guy who plays the Joker in Japanese is amazing.
Okay.
It's incredible. I mean, both are amazing. The guy who plays the Joker in the English version is one of the guys from Arrested Development.
Okay.
The brother, I don't know the character. But anyway, it's all very good. You should check it out. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
Is it cell shaded? Like cell shaded computer graphics, or is it?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I'm pretty sure it's not.
I'll have to check it out. Yeah, because that's on my list. Because I've been watching a ton of Batman. Like I watched Hush and some Death in the Family stuff, and now I finally know who Hush is because I forgot. If people keep bringing up Hush, I'm like, who's Hush? And now I know. I'm like, oh, that's Hush. Yeah, I really want to play Gotham Knights really badly. That's just anyway. Let's move into the last and my personal favorite segment of the show, which is community feedback and questions, because we're already at like 2.5 hours. Manny, thank you for your time. You're just so great. He's such a good sport. So I got a great question, and we talked about it beforehand, and I just want to make sure I credit the person with it. Otherwise, I don't want to let him down. The question is thus, Manny. This one comes in from where are you here? Why are you not? Oh, here we go. This one comes in from Missile Mage. He says, or asks us, favorite use of a licensed song in media. Favorite use. And also, I'm going to, my caveat on this is it can be a cover if you want to do it that way, just in case. Like if
you brought this up before the show, and I had a hard time thinking about it. And this might not necessarily be my favorite because I feel like I would need to come up with like a list and like really, really think about it. But one that stands out that I thought was extremely cool was the trailer for Ghost Recon Breakpoint.
Oh, thank God. I thought you were going to say the same thing I was going to say. I was like,
no!
Continue.
It was a song called Tick of the Clock by the Chromatics. And it was, if I remember correctly, like Breakpoint was introducing, I forget what the feature is called, but it's when you like lay down and like cover yourself in mud.
Mm-hmm.
You can hide. They were introducing that, yeah, and it has this. It's called Tick of the Clock, and go listen to it, everybody. It's really good. It has this like very like kind of like syncopated like, and it's like there's a clock sound in the back, and it's like almost cyberpunky in a way.
Oh, cool.
And it just like gave another feeling to Ghost Recon, and I loved Wildlands, so I was really excited to play Breakpoint. And I maintain that it was a very fun game. I love that game. But it had this really new, different feel. It was like, and then like it had in-game clips of like, Ghost walking around and like methodically like stalking out these enemies in the jungle. It was just super cool and very, very. It just had a lot of style. It was very cool. So that would be one of my favorites, I would say. Maybe not my top, but I would need to think about it longer.
That's
What about
so
you?
cool. I had to ask before we go, did you beat Breakpoint?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, I went back recently and did it because they added the AI and I didn't have anyone else to play with. So when I had the AI companions, it could just like it was so much easier. I'm like, you guys go over here.
Yeah. I love that, and I was super into the multiplayer. I played the multiplayer for a really long
Really?
time.
Was it good?
I loved it. I mean, I also love the Wildlands multiplayer.
Okay.
It was just like it's like the opposite of Call of Duty. It's just very methodical. Like if you don't have the patience, then just don't bother because you'll be super frustrated. But I love that game. Yeah, Breakpoint's awesome.
So you're talking about a game trailer that has a song in there that you really like, and this one always comes back to mind for me. I have a singer-songwriter friend who sings this song pretty much every time he performs, but it was the trailer for Dante's Inferno. And Dante's Inferno, if anybody who doesn't know about it, it's basically the tale of Dante and the sins that he committed during war, and his wife is stolen from him by the devil, and so Dante has to go into hell to get her back. And in the trailer, they play "Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone," and it's him, and he's fighting down into the depths. And I don't even know if they even have like noises for him or any sound effects while he's fighting through it, but it's just that song playing over the top of it, and it's such a perfect kind of, I think, marriage of those two things. And it's just like it's always stuck with me. And I remember seeing that trailer on TV a lot because it was an EA game, so they had I think the funding to kind of pop it up a lot of places. So it's go check that trailer out along with this one about Breakpoint. I have to go back. I don't know if I've seen that one or not. I was really invested in the Breakpoint stuff because I was a huge fan of Wildlands. So like I was covering like all the stuff they could do and then what they actually ended up saying they're going to do. And
I like took the day off of work when it came out. I was like into it, man. Yeah.
Okay, so like if they make another Ghost Recon, man, I'm just gonna find out what platform you're playing on. Hopefully crossplay will just be a thing.
Yeah.
Just whatever. Because like I don't know if you have a crew that you went with, but like my crew starts with like two other people, and then like they're both they just like get sick of it and they leave, and I'm like sitting out there alone with a gun. I'm like,
I tried to get my coworkers to get into it, and we played the multiplayer for a couple days, I feel, and I was like, oh yeah, guys, this is so good. And they're like, dude, we're just sitting in the bush. Why is this fun? I was like, yeah, we're stalking our prey. And they're like, I'm gonna go play literally anything else.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, fine. Dude, yeah, we'll play together for sure.
I want them to make and I know they've because he was in there a little bit, but like the Predator. I know they made a Predator game recently. I would love to play like a co-op Predator game where like you're both predators and you're hunting a ton of people down.
In fact, I back when Steve and I were doing some content stuff, we had a stream. I went to his house. This must have been Christmas 2017 probably. Okay. I went over to his house and I brought my PlayStation. He had his. We set up these two massive TVs in his living room, and we did the Predator mission in Wildlands, and we streamed it. And every time we died, we would do a shot, and Amazing. 4.5 hours later, we were on our faces. It was a rough night, but it was super fun. One of my favorite memories of all the cool stuff I did with Steve. Shout out to Steve. You're
Steve,
great.
I love Steve. Well, I forgot to mention this too. Steve Bastek, I hope he's watching. But man, one of my things I look back on in 2020 that I enjoyed was going back to the Terminator films with him and talking about them, because those are like his films, and I think it made me more amped up to talk to someone who's like a huge fan with like someone who's coming in a little bit newer to it. So yeah, Steve, if you're listening, you're great, and I miss your face. So check out those two things, and also like if you guys have any that you're like, oh, I love that they use this song in this movie or TV show or game even. Is it Claire de Lune? They use that in everything now. The first time I heard it was like in Ocean's 11, and now it's just like in everything. There's one, by the way, the song they use is the kick in Inception in the beginning of that film. There's a commercial going on right now that was playing that a lot, and I kept hearing it, and so I'd like look up like I was being kicked out of a dream. I was like
where's my top? I need to spin my top.
Yeah, exactly. Like my totem.
months.
Yeah, so that's good stuff. Anyway, thank you for writing in, Missile Mage, and anybody else. If you want to write in questions or topics or ideas for future shows, all you have to do is just tweet the hashtag Critical Podcast. You can tweet at Go Critical on Twitter or at me personally. I'm at JimmyGood013. However, if you'd like to tweet at Manny over there, Manny, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I'm wow, words, man. Words are hard. Words
I have
are
a hard
tough
time with them.
For adults who don't know how to use them. At I am Jitsu. That's IAMJITSU.
Yes, it should be popping up on screen, and it will be down below as well. But Manny, one thing I love about Manny is that, and Manny, I'm going to talk about you like you're not here. You post usually a lot of fun stuff on Twitter. Which is like kind of rare. So it's kind of nice. And you're a pretty respectful guy, and I respect that about you. So I love seeing that stuff. And it'll just be some crazy, like, here's a screenshot from Assassin's Creed, and it'll just say like 2 words, and it's like, I don't know what this is.
Sure. Art is what we'll call it.
Art. Look at this art right here. It's making me really want to play the game. As someone who's played like all the mainline Assassin's Creed games, I feel like I'm in kind of an abusive relationship where I'm like, I told you we were done, and then it's like it comes around again, and I'm like, stay away from me. You burned me too much. Like, so I'm waiting for it to drop to like half price. But I played Odyssey and Origins, and I think a lot of people such as yourself haven't played Odyssey and Origins, and they were like, Valhalla's amazing. So I'm glad to hear that you like it, but I'll get to it at some point. But anyway, I usually tell people to do a bunch of stuff, but all I'm asking nowadays, just leave a comment. Just let me know how you liked the video, what you didn't like, which if you liked Manny, if you want to see him back on again, I'll probably just go in the comment section and write that myself. Like, Manny, someone wrote about you in the comment section.
Hey, Manny's great. This isn't Jimmy, I promise.
Yeah, exactly. Just be under an account that's just, it just says like, I don't know, it's like, hates. Or it'll just be like, I hate Lord of the Rings, Star Trek forever, or something. It'll be like, definitely not me. They'll never find me. No offense, Trek fans. I bet Star Trek's great. I can't. There's only so many mythos I can get involved in.
Too many.
It's so many. Anyway, Manny, thank you so much for being on the show, and everybody else, thank you for watching and or listening. I appreciate you, and until next time, just remember to adapt and overcome.